It's the Intergalactic Soul, the Honorable Brother, the Revolutionary yourself, Darius Lockhart, and I'm here to tell you to watch Powerbombshells every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern on the Fight Game Media YouTube channel. That's right, every Sunday at 1 p.m., and that's on time, every time, because when we stand together, what time is it? That's right, it's nation time.
Welcome to Powerbombshells 201. I'm Mel. That's Sam. The background is black again, and it's making me insane.
It's part of the reason we were a few minutes late. We were trying to figure out why our stuff was not cooperating with us. So thank you for being patient. We are here. What it is the stream is also in mourning because Wheeler Yuta had to shave his head, and so it is joining me in mourning with this. So that's gonna be.
I mean, I can understand why the background is upset. Maybe it shaved itself while I was trying to fix it because it was so it's having a manic episode because of Wheeler losing his hair.
That's got to be it. That makes so much sense.
I'm not super sad, and the audience did it justice, and it was a great match. That was a lot of fun, but I mean, I think we all kind of saw it coming.
Yeah, it was. I think Nikki and I both said the same thing. As you could, if you've ever had your hair dry cut, it hurts. It is awful.
Oh yeah,
and
the burn
when Wheeler told Mina she was hurting him, he was serious. His hair not only was dry. Nikki went to hair school. Nikki was like, she has too much hair and it's too close to his scalp. That's gonna hurt him. So when he yelled, "Stop it! You're hurting me," that was a legitimate response to what Mina was doing because Nikki was like, of course she doesn't know that. And nobody decided to wet his hair or anything like that. So it probably was very painful, like not even just a metaphorical, but like literally painful for him because it was a dry cut and it was so close. She cut so much hair so close to the scalp. and
everybody who's ever just had to shave their hair or had their hair shaved knows that you need to cut the hairs. You have to wet it and cut the extra hairs, or else the clippers they catch.
Right. Exactly. So
that was like terrible on multiple levels. It was like, listen, I'm okay with like Wheeler losing, and they're like, okay, and it's like, and Dad was like, nope, you got to get back in there. You committed to getting your hair shaved.
Yeah.
And Dad Mox.
Then it was, and then you have Mox in the corner who was upset about it. Though he kept turning his head away, like he didn't want to look at it. He turned his head away a few times when they were cutting his hair, and I thought it was great having. But what I think actually going back to at the very beginning, I noticed when Wheeler came out, he kept twirling his hair, and it's because he had pink and purple or pink and blue pieces of hair put in, which is Mina's hair colors too. So to make it look like the hair he cut for Mina, he had put into his own hair.
Yeah, that's how I took it.
I thought that was a really great.
Cute. I love that detail. We were both.
Yeah, I thought that was a really cool.
Bob was just straight up like he wove Mina's hair into his hair, and I'm like, I think that's what it's giving off.
And then I thought it was also really funny when there's one point in the match where he got in the ring after Marina and Orange had been wrestling, and he hesitated to do anything because he wanted to see if Orange was going to pin Marina so that Marina would get her head shaved. Like he hesitated to do anything because he wanted to see. And I was like, I thought that was a really great little detail that they did with Yuta. And then I was reading in some of the Fightful notes last night, they said that Yuta's been a really good sport about it. So this sounds like this was not Yuta's idea because Nikki she assumed it was Yuta's idea, but the way that was worded made it sound like that was not Yuta's idea to have his head shaved. And he just obviously, because it's his job, he went along with it and did it. And so it was very sad to see, and I was like, I hate having to cover this, but I mean, it was obviously I get it for storyline purposes, and it was really great for that. But I will say that I think Mina did legitimately hurt him when she was cutting that much hair, and then
now that I mean, it looked like it anyway, but you're probably right because having had like I've done that before, like I've either cut my own off or whatever, and you have to. And then Bob shaves his bald as well.
So. So Brad says that as a bald who shaves after Rush Hour, I flinched when they brought out the electric razor. The way I'm sure it got caught on some of his hair as it was cutting was hurting me, because Yuta has thick hair. Like that's
you need to cut that. Like, you can't even use clippers until you cut it down to, like, because clippers have, if anyone who doesn't know this, if you're not familiar with these things, clippers have like a maximum length as it is. Your hair has to be a minimum length before the clippers will even effectively.
Yeah.
And that only goes up to like, what, 2.5 inches max or something?
Something like that, yeah.
And that's a big set of clippers.
Well, and you could see, like, I mean, of course, the whole thing is you're going to get shaved bald, but like they like were so close to his scalp when they were cutting, and I was like, his hair is going to be shorter than Daniel Garcia's. Like, it is.
Well, and he has made the unfortunate mistake of trying to like run a razor over her legs dry. We'll never do it again if she's smart, because everybody knows that you can't dry shave anything. Even if you just wet it a little, it can hurt. But you cannot dry shave like any hairs without it leaving a literal rash. It leaves a burn. It's
hopefully he doesn't have razor burn. Poor guy. Nikki was talking about.
Like, he's being a good sport about it, and now he has a traumatic event out there. I hope that when they went backstage, he got a really good stylist that like gave him a head shampoo and a nice like hot towel. I know.
I was thinking about it. I was like, I bet his head was so tender after. I was like, I bet his head hurt. And so, I mean, it was obviously made for great television. And will be so, but he definitely suffered to give us that great television. And then I did see a clip from the house show today, and he was wearing a hat, and whoever was in the ring was trying to pull it off of him, and he was like fighting him. I figured we wouldn't see him bald until they go ahead and show it on TV. I don't know if it'll be on Dynamite or if he'll just keep trying to hide it as long as possible. And then
that's fair, but it needs to be on like. Plain old regularly scheduled AEW television for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so when is this House Rules show? Is it going to be shown here in America? Or
no?
So it's just that it was just a house show.
Yeah, awesome. Because the House Rule, because a few years ago AEW was doing the House Rules show like throughout the states, and they were never aired. Like clips were shown because they like, I guess, went away from the house show things, because I don't know if it was just losing money or if they didn't have. And so
we're not doing well.
Right, and so then, but that it was just a house show for them. Like they had today, I saw, and we'll talk about some of the stuff that happened on that house shows. But then they had like a match today that was because Robbie Eagles filmed an ROH match yesterday, so it was Robbie Eagles Aussie Open versus Brody King, MJF, and no, not Brody King. I'm sorry, MJF. Forget who else. It was like some crazy match, and I actually saw Josh from WeWork Stiff was like, obviously I'm a New Japan fan, but I did go to AEW last year, and he was like, if they had announced this match, I would have bought tickets, because he was like, Kyle Fletcher is one of my favorite wrestlers. I'm a huge Robbie Eagles fan. And he was like, for a house show, they should have announced this, because they were, and I mean, obviously all wrestling companies doing this, they were reportedly papering both events. And so if I was like, if you don't want to have to paper so many tickets, then maybe you should advertise for your house show.
At least
to get people to come.
If they had advertised that, they probably would have picked up at least less papering. Like they
would have definitely. Yeah. I mean, and they would have, they should have, because the only thing that I think was announced was Jon Moxley and Marina versus Tony and Orange. That was announced beforehand. Because that was announced before they even left the state. And then I believe they announced that the Brawling Birds would be would have a match. And I think that's all they announced. So I was like, you can't sell tickets to, I mean, yes, for AEW, people who are already AEW fans, but I mean, if you're trying to expose new people in that market, then you should promote those matches. So I completely understand what Josh is saying. They definitely should have.
At least a few of them. Like you should at least I know it's a house show, but and that's kind of house show, whatever, but you should at least announce. I feel like even house shows back in the day it's like at least this person and this person are going to show up.
Well, and when you're in a newer market, you don't come to very often, then yes, you should absolutely announce things. And
like
yes,
that for sure.
MJF does fear Robbie Eagles. He did not get his title match. Hopefully, maybe they'll get to it at some point. But I'm glad that they did at least use Robbie, because Robbie is great. And Robbie is looking the weight, because he has bleached his hair blonde. He looks like the third member of the Outrunners, between the very blonde hair and the mustache. He looks like a third
nice member. So he's got that Tom Selleck.
He's been rocking the mustache for a while, which I'm not a fan of. I'm just not a fan of mustaches in general. Sorry if I offend you if you are a mustache person in the chat. But yes, he's definitely giving Outrunners vibes for sure. Yes, and I saw that too. They brought out the barber set. They had the barber side which is what the blue liquid is. That's to make sure that everything is sanitized. So they
just didn't know what they didn't know at that point.
Luther brought it to the ring, and then I guess that's where Mox got not Mox. That's where Orange got the clippers from. But yeah, poor Yuta. I know that.
Maybe they should have just. Luther was dressed like a barber. He had all the stuff that a barber needed. Maybe they should have just left it to Luther.
Yeah, maybe so. He was ready. He was prepared.
He was dressed for the part. He brought out all the stuff that he needed. Maybe they should have been like, back off and let the barber handle it. Even though he's a gimmick barber.
Crash is right. He did kind of look like he was going to scalp Yuta.
He did. He looked like he knew what he was doing and he was ready to go, and that there was some weird
obviously Moxley is bald, but Luther is bald. Like, he probably knew what he was doing.
He had they went to that blue liquid and stuff was like the sterilizer stuff. That's literally what you would find in a salon, not in a regular bathroom usually. Right. So somebody thought of it.
Yes. They at least thought of it for maybe, I guess it was for looks, not for.
I guess. It was for the aesthetic and not the overall outcome. Right. Ultimately, good job, but poor Wheeler Yuta's poor head. He's gonna have to put almond oil or something.
Yeah, probably so. Poor thing.
Some aloe.
Yes, but before we get into the shows, I did want to bring this from last week. So, if you watched our episode 200 last week, you heard us joking about a new service that we could offer wrestlers to help them at the end of their career, or perhaps the end of their life. And so I saw this meme. Actually, it was funny because I saw it from Bad Dude Tito and his story literally the same day of our show, and I had to save it because I was like, oh my God, this goes to exactly what we were talking about. So we can now offer this service as well. We can have your ashes put in an urn, and then someone you love or someone you trust can throw them in your enemy's face while they're in a match and cause them to be blinded by your ashes.
You got to make sure you send this to Keela and let her know.
I know.
She was in on this. She deserves. This has now been added to our options menu.
Yes, this is part of the option.
How you want to go at what services we can provide.
Yeah, so I was like, I have
the a la carte
tequila, but I was like, I'm gonna save it for the show first, and then I'll send it to Keela after.
There you go. I think that you can offer this a la carte where it's the person who's throwing the ashes in their face, and then it doesn't matter who they're throwing it in, or if you want to pick both, that's the next tier up.
Right. You can have an add-on with it. We'll give you a base option, and then you can have your add-on as well. So
we'll have the tier one, the wrestler who's willing to have anybody's ashes.
Right. Exactly.
It's amazing. I love it.
I thought that was perfect. I was like, oh my God, I have to say this. And I was like, I didn't want to forget. And so I emailed it. I waited and emailed it to myself on Friday. And then so I didn't forget. I put a reminder in my phone 5 minutes before the show started. So I would not forget. Because I was like, I have to. Because laughed out loud when I saw it, and I was like, "Oh my god, the timing of this!"
So awesome.
And it also
it's the universe calling out to us that there is a market for this.
Right, exactly. See, and we and then also there was a picture from the Super Bowl of the Costco guys, and they were at the Super Bowl wearing AEW shirts, and I sent a picture of it to Keela, and I said, now we know how we're going to get to the next QT Marshall. Because we talked about this off the air. Somehow Keela and I went an entire episode without roasting QT.
But that's okay, because for the birthday party, where you know how you need games, so I'm not going to kill it too much. But one of the games will involve QT Marshall and you and Keela. So
yes,
you know how you have party games at birthday parties,
right,
like you need to have a couple.
Exactly.
I decided to come up with a couple, and that's one of my main games. So we decided, once we talked about it, it was like, ooh, save it for the birthday party. So
right, exactly. So we
need party games. So stay tuned for that.
So we're gonna get to our birthday. Our birthday is on a Friday, so we're gonna celebrate our birthday the following Sunday, and so we're gonna celebrate it March the 1st, and of course, so we'll remind you of it. So, but yes, we will have. So for the Keela Cash fans in the house, she has graciously agreed to be back, and also she is booked and busy. And this coming Wednesday on the Dynamite show, she will be filling in for Paul Fontaine, and so she is going to be live.
Brave leap of babysitting Jeff Hawkins by herself. Because that's how good
Mel and I babysat him together.
We have to do it together when we go.
Yeah, we had to do it together, and so that will be. And
that's how big of a handful that jerk is.
So she has to go from maintaining Salty Scott to
she's got a lot of experience.
She does. Salty Scott has prepared her for 4 years. So she should be good and ready. And also, while we're on the topic of our 200th episode, I would be remiss to not shout out. Speaking of Strong Style, they actually celebrated their 200th episode back at Wrestle Kingdom. Their Wrestle Kingdom episode that week. They celebrated 200 episodes. I happened to see it like in a caption, and so when Steven messaged me Sunday to congratulate me, and I asked to him if I saw that right, and so I made sure to congratulate them. I did hear on the wrap that I heard Keela tell Salty Scott that they wanted us to count backwards. I mean, we wanted them to count backwards to find out how close they were to 200, and maybe we can have a 200 club party or something.
Oh, that'd be hilarious. Can you imagine? That's a lot.
Yeah, could you? Yeah. Fun. Well, I mean, I think it was Crash last week who said like we were just a few people away from the Brady Bunch by having all the squares up there. So we would definitely we'd have 6 of us on one screen if we did a 200 club.
Maybe if my games are good enough, we can invite people on for the birthday party, and we can kind of have a birthday party / 200th episode.
There we go.
I mean, we get wild here. We get wild here.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
And yes, Graceland was amazing. Yeah, Jeff and Keela will be extra salty. Oh God, I'm
very excited. Yeah.
Yes, so definitely that will be appointment viewing on Wednesday, like right after, or very close to when Dynamite ends. So I can only imagine what they're gonna have to say. Yes, he said it's 9 or nothing. I'm sure if we can fit, I don't know how many people StreamYard can hold on screen at one time though. I don't know if we can.
I think there's a max.
I don't know if 9 will break. I don't know if 9 will break StreamYard.
I don't know. We could find out.
Yes, we could. And also, while we're giving accolades, shout out to Chris Lee and to Cliff Baumgartner, who won an Emmy last night I believe it's like the Nashville / I don't know if it's Mid-South region. I forget the way it's worded, but they, forgive me for getting that not quite right, but yes, they won an Emmy for their for their documentary when Giants walked here. which is about Dorton Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina. We had Kris and Cliff come on the show and talk about their documentary. It did air on PBS. I know it was on here. It was here in North Carolina locally, but it was also available on the app nationwide. I don't know if it's still available on the app. If it is, definitely check it out, because that was a really great documentary. I really enjoyed our conversation with them. We'll post the link to the interview. I'll post it on our social media. That way, if you missed it or want to go check it out again, I'll link that back. And then also, I used some of that interview for a Daily DDT article. So if you don't have time to go back and listen to it, then you can kind of read over it. But it's a really, really great really great documentary, and I loved learning, because I wasn't super familiar with Dorton Arena, so it was really cool. And they got some really cool photos that they were able to use that people had never been able to use before, or they didn't know existed. It was really cool. So shout out to those guys, because that's a huge thing for them. And so and Ashe was talking about them, and somebody was like, now you have to make sure you call him Emmy award winning Chris Lee when he does the Ashe broadcast.
I'm so proud of those guys. I saw that pop up on my feed this morning, and definitely we'll get that stuff to you guys, because I don't have their socials on our thing right now.
We'll make sure. Because I think Cliff may only be on Instagram. Chris Lee just got his Twitter back last week.
We used to have Chris's email or something. We used to have some of his socials, whether he's back on or not. But
we do have him on Instagram. He is back on Twitter. He was hacked way back in November and just got his account back literally days ago.
Good timing, because now there's people. Yeah, go check that stuff out, people.
Yeah, so we'll make sure to post that so that you can see it. But shout out to Chris and Cliff. Yes, she does need to keep hydrated. We'll make sure to pass that along to her. Yes, I'm excited about birthday party games too.
Yeah, I realized that, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to make a thing of it, because that's me. I'm like all or nothing when it comes to silly crap like that.
Yeah,
and I was like, I could do a couple of things like that. And then depending on what happens that wrestling week, we'll have to work that in somehow. So
wrestling might be secondary on the birthday.
It could be totally calm, but usually it isn't. So
right, wrestling might be secondary on the birthday show. Just gonna let you know that now.
Never know, but. Because I am an ever optimist, will always find a way to make it a positive experience. I fight for the dumbest game ever.
And I saw this when we came on the air, so thank you for this, Michael. Michael says, Sam and Mel are the best, giving real insight on fake fighting. Thank you. You are very welcome. We are glad to provide that for the people who would like real insight on fake fighting. That might have to be our other tagline besides those two broads watching the wrestling. We enjoy, maybe it's giving real insight on fake fighting. We might have to put that on a shirt someday. If we put it on a shirt, Michael, we'll send you one.
I was going to say, he definitely needs kickbacks on that. At minimum, he needs to have the test run of the shirts.
Right, exactly. All right, before we get into the fun parts, this actually is not a really bad thing. I just do, we typically... Poor Janelle. We typically do our Janelle Grant updates at the early part of the show. This one actually is not an awful update. There's actually something really positive that's going to come out. But first of all, so not this past Friday, the Friday prior, in the news dump of the day, which is what they like to do. It was that
news dump.
The judge. Well, this part is. This is kind of neutral news. It's not. It sounds bad, but it's not really that bad. So it's been I want to say July is the last time there's been any activity in Janelle Grant's lawsuit against Vince McMahon and WWE. And the judge finally ruled that Janelle did not present enough information to continue with discovery at this point. However, she can refile at a later date so it's not lost. She can still try it again. I guess they're just going to have to obviously just make their case a little bit more clear on what they're doing. So that's the most movement we've had in this case.
So, yes,
since last summer. Obviously, judges have a lot of cases they have to review. They can take their time, which is what we said way back when we started covering this was going to be a very long process. As you can see, that was more than 6 months ago that anything has happened with this case, and it was just a little bit of information, and so it's still obviously ongoing. But I did find out, I got a press release that was sent to me this coming Thursday, February the 19th, in Hartford, Connecticut. Survivors, advocates, legislators, and state leaders are going to gather at the Legislative Office building because they're going to call on legislature to codify the Federal Prison Rape Elimination Act into state law and also to reform state non-disclosure agreement policies that have been used to silence survivors and conceal abuse. This event will feature Janelle Grant as well as Alex Brown. They're going to share their lived experiences. And then we got a quote from Janelle. This is the first public quote we have gotten from Janelle Grant since her lawsuit was filed. And she says, we are all more vulnerable to coercive control than we realize. Coercive control happens in increments, and entire industries are built on systems of coercive control. Tools such as NDAs can be used to ominously justify anything and even turn a life into someone else's storyline. Keeping even those who have not signed confidentiality agreements working in fear. Any system that sacrifices people, whether current or former employees, at the expense of safety and human dignity is dangerous, if not impossible, for someone to leave. I'm not alone in living a life looking over my shoulder. Evolving systems and holistic changes how we address sexual violence remains how we address sexual violence remains painfully slow. I am here to be part of the solution and to give a voice to the people in Connecticut who are living and working in fear. I want to empower others with information in hopes that we can create a better and safer world, said Janelle Grant, whose NDA with the WWE has impacted her ability to address sexual violence. So that is huge that Janelle even released a public statement of any kind. And secondly, that she is going to be at this event and publicly speak about her experiences while this lawsuit is still ongoing. So this is a huge step for Janelle Grant from just a healing perspective, not even with the lawsuit. Like, this is huge for her because she has said in her previous lawsuit, and her attorney Ann Callis has talked about it, that Janelle does live in fear. She lives a life that's very where she can't go out in public a lot. This was even prior to the lawsuit, just because of the things that happened to her. But has a public lawsuit, it's made it even more difficult for her. So for her to take the step to do this is huge. And so I don't know if this event will be, I think obviously it's in public, so I don't know that it'll be anything that we'll see any type of footage from, but obviously if we hear anything, we'll obviously share that with you. I don't know perhaps if WWE or Vince McMahon will even acknowledge her, speaking publicly, if they'll try to use this against her. I would not put it past them. But, obviously anything we hear about this will definitely pass along. But, I just wish Janelle the best on Thursday, and, sending her a huge amount of strength, because she's going to need a lot of it to publicly talk about this. So that's huge for her to be in a place where she can do something like that.
Now, this has a couple of things that could work in her favor, even though the length of court cases takes it's like 7 to 10 years on average to deal, which is a normal thing, and that's that's probably just been getting worse, especially with where we are.
Yeah.
However, she has the possibility, even though that gets drawn out, is that during that time, because if this is something that's meant to change the legislative portion of Connecticut, right, so that goes into effect in Connecticut's laws, and it makes it say, hey, you can't use an NDA against someone who's speaking out against, because the reality is contracts are valid up until they are neglected or negated by illegal behavior. In other words, a contract is binding unless one of the parties involved in the contract engages in inherently illegal behavior, i.e. trafficking someone, offering them up for sexual favors, doing all these other things. So that would void any NDA fundamentally. And furthermore, like, we starting to see states go, NDAs are kind of BS, and they're kind of BS for a few reasons that aren't just limited to the abuses that go on in the workplace, but they're also going on, it's preventing people to work in their field.
Yeah.
Because they have the compounding factor of, oh, you don't get to talk about what you created or what you made or something in this field that's very specialized, say it's, software engineering or restaurateur or whatever. And it's like, well, I can't not be able to make a pizza within 70 miles of where I live for the next 7 years if I'm a pizza chef.
Right. Like, I mean, even like, and I've talked about this before, I worked in the vet field, and there were veterinarians that had to sign contracts that if they left, they could not practice within 100 miles of the practice they were at.
Which is obscene, because not only is that, okay, so all these free market dudes are out there going like, free the market, but then use this bullshit right here, which is not freeing the market at all. Because if you're so scared of someone leaving your company and going to work for your competition, you need to be a better company. That's competition. But of course they cherry pick it, and of course it's run by corporations who are obviously writing the narrative. But at the end of the day, the more states, because change is incremental, the more states that you see that are saying, hi, we're California, you can't do NDAs anymore, especially here in California, where a lot of people are in acting or are in music or are in software engineering, and they can't not be able to work within 300 miles of the only place they've ever lived in their life.
Right.
That's nuts. And that's not anti-competition. Like, that's just monopoly right there. That's monopoly in its clearest and most blatant form, and that should be not okay. So maybe along the way you see some like even incremental legislative change, but in Connecticut, because that's where this is being adjudicated.
That's where the WWE headquarters are in Connecticut.
Right. And that could, I mean, with maybe, just maybe, because of the length of court crap, and the fact that Connecticut exists in a weird purple territory where they sometimes go blue and they sometimes go red with their politics, maybe she gets a law passed, because that's what she's going to do, if I'm reading that correctly, is that she's going to go speak at the public hearings that will speak to legislators in Connecticut that will say, we need a law that says that this is not okay. And if that law gets passed in the process for a case going on, that becomes a huge win for Janelle and her team. Because now those NDAs that they keep waving around as Janelle's not allowed to say anything about this case and all of her stuff should be voided because she signed an NDA, now becomes...
and then that's also part of the argument, is that she signed the NDA under duress.
If they make a law in Connecticut, it goes into effect, it voids their entire argument.
And not only Janelle Grant, there are multiple people related to WWE who have NDAs. And so it would not only make hers null and void, but it would do the same to all the others. And then these people could come forward and
it's working in the company right now, because they have inevitably signed contracts to say that they will mediate in Connecticut, because I've signed NDAs before and they're always mediated in the home city of the company that you're working for, because they obviously will have favorable judicial conditions.
Right. Which goes back to the Gail Kim, which I believe goes back to the Gail Kim lawsuit from TNA, because she lives in Florida, but the company is based in Nashville, and so that's where this is coming from. And so we could actually watch this. If something happens in Connecticut, if the same thing happens in Tennessee, then this could potentially affect Gail Kim's.
And they are
I guess TNA's lawsuit against Gail Kim, I should say.
They're doing this kind of thing here in Michigan for multitudes of reasons. But I mean, this is the original place where like people made things and patents, where like you have Edison and you have Ford and you have GM and Chrysler and all of these things. And so they're pretty sensitive about the fine line that you're walking between you can't bring your former employer's recipe to the new employer and just give it to them outright.
Right.
That is a little bit unfair, and we do need to make sure that that's not happening. However, there's a giant distance between you can't say a word while you're being literally having illegal acts perpetrated on.
And then you could also go, I mean, supposedly there are certain actors and athletes who have people, particularly women, sign NDAs, and they are not allowed to talk about their relationship with said person or any type of sexual behavior or anything that can make them look bad. Leonardo DiCaprio is apparently one of those people.
Which is great. I mean, that's fine. You can have those kinds of clauses.
But also, you also don't, when they are young women, in his case.
But like rape is illegal. Trafficking is illegal.
Of course.
All of those
the NDAs can protect some of that if an actor has an NDA, it can be to protect him, but also if he is doing dangerous things or doing illegal things, then that NDA is there to protect that. That's what that says to me.
That NDA fundamentally would become void because they committed an illegal act.
Right, but that NDA being there
is.
Right. But I was going to say, but that NDA being there can prevent anybody, women or whoever, from coming forward to talk about abuse that they suffered from that person because the NDA. So the NDA is also a tool to keep them in fear if there are things happening, if there are illegal things happening to them while they are in a relationship with that person.
I absolutely agree with you, is that it goes from what it needs, where it's being used as a shield by powerful people. Which was not,
to be honest, in most cases, that's what NDAs are used for.
That's what they are used for. That's not what the intent of an NDA was ever supposed to be.
No, which is what, Crash asks here. When did NDAs become a legitimate thing? Seriously, it seems something that came into being a couple decades ago out of the blue. It smells of corporate lobbying.
Of course, that's exactly it. It's now what should have the essence of what that was supposed to be about, which was what I said originally, which is me running to my competitor with, like me, an employee running to that competitor with all the information I left. Well, that doesn't happen very often. And that law should have been regulatory. But instead of that, it's being used by people in the positions of power to scare their victims into not saying shit.
Mm-hmm.
And courts are backing that up by ruling the way that they do, which is why you need legislation in court like this. And again, like you said, good on Janelle forever. Janelle has no obligation right now to speak in public about really anything. And she's had a horrible experience that, I mean, anytime she comes out and talks, I give her all the credit in the world. It takes a ton of strength to continue on dealing with what she's dealing with under the exact things like having to, can you imagine just not even be able to go out and just get a cup of tea or go to the grocery store and get some air?
And she specified in that statement, she is not alone in having to look over her shoulder.
Oh no,
that line stuck out to me the most out of everything she said, because obviously, and I think that's playing out in real
time. If you look around, what happening in the popular or in the look around, everyone, that's exactly what's happening. Mm-hmm. I mean, what Janelle is facing is the doors have been blown off of that. I don't think we can hide it anymore. And that's definitely a weapon of the powerful.
Absolutely.
To shield victims from justice and protection.
Right. And so, more power to her and the other person, I believe their name was Alex, that will also be speaking about their experience as well. So we need more people talking about their lived experiences and talking about how harmful these things are. So I'm grateful to them that they are speaking out and that they have advocates and state legislators and people who will listen to them, and hopefully they achieve what they're trying to, because it's definitely something that needs to happen, and then hopefully other states follow through as well. Crash said, yes, but this sort of NDA is blanket. And you cannot disclose anything, even actual crimes, not just protecting intellectual property or protecting a secret recipe. Right. And he said, its blatant intent is to allow those in power to act with impunity, plain and simple. Right. Oh, it 100% is. Absolutely.
Agree. I completely agree with you. That's the entire thing, is that the intent was to be for the benefit of commerce. What it's being used for right now is terrorizing people. A lot of things where we started out where this was supposed to be a law with good intent behind it, which is now being used by the powerful to mess around with people who don't have as much agency or ability as them.
Yeah, definitely.
To access the right part of the system to help them. And this is, I think we're all looking down the barrel of a pretty bad, universal system that needs to be messed around with.
Yeah, which is why all this stuff is coming to a head now, because it's time to make global changes.
Well, that's it. She's fundamentally just another face of what is plaguing pretty much everywhere, clearly. And that...
And it is, and it's a global issue. It's not just something that's happening here; it's happening globally. And I think that's another reason. I don't want to get too much into it, but the Epstein files obviously aren't just affecting the United States; it's affecting all kinds of people, like sultans, people and royalty in the UK. It's everywhere. So it is a worldwide, global issue. And even if other places may not have NDAs in the way that the states do, they do. Obviously, people that are abusing others are obviously using tactics to keep survivors quiet in one shape or another, whether it's an NDA or not. This is something that's a global issue. And so hopefully now that the more that people are talking about this, we can hopefully get some meaningful things to change. Jordan says,
gross that these jerks always have to make their gross behavior legal before they perpetrate it.
Yeah, definitely. It is bigger than just incriminating individuals, about the culture of power, right? Which is how all of this continues.
I totally agree with that.
Jordan, thank you. He said, appreciate you guys covering this. Only hear you guys in Post Wrestling, still following the story. And shout out to Post Wrestling for using their platform, particularly Brandon Thurston, who does excellent work. And covering
takes so much crap, that they're doing it right.
Right. They do.
I follow those guys. I have Brandon Thurston, John Alba over there, and they're like them and BJ have obviously been covering it, and Sam's been covering it along with those guys. And you all take so much shit just for being truthful and honest and covering the fact that, because this is it's not just a stain on culture, it's a stain on wrestling. And this, and now obviously, like you said, with the Epstein files, where we are with all of that coming out, it's this is everywhere. This is not unique to WWE, but also we've got victims that are stepping up and actually speaking out and speaking their truth. And so we need to support them, because if you look at what's gone on with even people who tried to speak out, they've been hurt, they've been doxxed. It sucks.
Yeah. And they've been doxxed by their own government. Those women were supposed to have been protected in those files, and they weren't. They protected the abusers, which we knew.
That's the culture that needs to die, is the abuser protection culture.
Yeah, it is a Pam Bondi, and it is interesting. They also are setting up a woman to take the fall for that. Pam Bondi should absolutely be called out for what she's doing, because she also was the AG in Florida when Jeffrey Epstein was doing a lot of the things that he was doing. So she is just as much of a tool as other people, and she's complicit in a lot of things, but they also are setting up a woman. The White House is setting up a woman to take a fall for this. She is the one. People are going after her, which rightfully so, but instead of going after the men who are in here also perpetrating things, and obviously Ghislaine Maxwell is just as guilty as Jeffrey Epstein. She is just as evil as he is. Yep. And Pam Bondi is, in some sense, people have compared Pam Bondi to Trump's Ghislaine Maxwell, and I don't think that is incorrect. But you also see that the White House is pushing out a woman in front of all of this, so that a woman is taking the brunt of this, instead of, like Crash says, focusing on what is
it reeks of what they do with Steph in the WWE when they need to gloss. They said,
and that's not to say that Stephanie McMahon is not, complicit in her own things.
No, she's got her own cross.
And again, I'm not Pam Bondi is very complicit in a lot of things, but it is, if you look at it, you see that it is the women being pushed.
There's a pattern there. And that's, right. I think if a girl says that it'll be an easier pill to swallow, it's like, no, that's grosser. And if I believed in that sort of thing, I would. There's a special place in hell for women like that, because
it's women upholding. And that's how. And I don't want to get into a whole big thing of this, but I will say that women help uphold the patriarchy, and this is how, because they think it's going to benefit them. She thinks she's going to get a pat on the head from the president.
Y'all need to go read the Handmaid's Tales, the books, because yikes! The show is pretty. Fairly accurate, but geez, go read the books, because that's those kind of women.
Yeah, it's definitely
enablers.
Yes, absolutely.
It's terrible.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for acknowledging that it is something. It's like we've talked about before. It's not fun to talk about, but we're not going to be part of the issue and sweep it under the rug. We're going to talk about it. So
I want to respect Sam's work that she's done on it a lot. So I really feel like I need, I want to be here and able to continue to talk about. It's not easy to talk about, but it also, that's why it needs to be talked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the only way change changes. Change is very incremental, but you're never getting anywhere if you're not saying anything.
Right. Exactly. Which is what we try to use our platform for, to be a voice for that. And so, yeah. Like I said, I definitely, before we got into the fun stuff, I wanted to make sure that we talk about it, because it is important. It's just as important as it's more important really than anything else that we cover. But so I wanted to give that update, and if anything comes from Thursday that we find out about with what happens, we'll absolutely talk about it next week. And since I'm still looking for a platform to write about this stuff, my social media, just posting, information like this, and the podcast are definitely the platform I will definitely be using. And then I will, I'm trying to figure out in the meantime what to do to continue talking about it, because just because the Daily DDT platform went away does not mean that I'm going to, stop covering it. So that is and thankfully Mel is very good about letting me use this platform to talk about that. So we'll continue to do so. And now I guess it's time to switch gears back to what we were talking about before. We will get to the Grand Slam stuff, but before Grand Slam even happened, we had a really huge Dynamite on Wednesday night that saw not one, but 2 title changes. And it also saw the return of a tag team as well. And then there was also what I'm now calling Brody Gate, which we will get into. So first of all, we had Tommaso Ciampa, who has been in the company for less than 3 weeks, defended his title against Kyle Fletcher on Wednesday night. We assumed that Tommaso was going to retain, and that is not what happened. They had a banger of a match, which we knew, but that was like probably match of the year contender.
This is good.
Excellent match. I thought almost that they were going to let it go to a draw because it was coming down to the wire.
Yeah.
But then Kyle gets the win. And at first I was mad because I was like, why are we doing this? But then obviously I knew why within a few minutes. So after he wins, Mark Briscoe comes out, and the groan that I let out when I saw Mark Briscoe come out, because
we heard it all the way up here in Michigan. We were thinking about you. We were like, oh, Sam literally said, don't do this to her.
Which I guess it's on me. I should have realized that this was going, because they have had 6 matches. I should have realized this was going to a best of 7 series. They didn't typically in best of 7s. In a lot of cases, they tend to pre-promote that. Shout out, because the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks had one of the best of 7 series I've ever seen. It was incredible, but we knew going into it that it was a best of 7. So that's on me for not realizing that this was going to turn into a best of 7. And so Mark Briscoe comes out. He's like, we've had 6 matches. We're tied 3 apiece. And I was like, okay, that's why we're okay. I got it. And we've talked about this several times on here. What was the original plan? Clearly, Tommaso Ciampa was not supposed to win that title. What was the plan? We've been saying, what was the plan? Who was supposed to originally beat Mark Briscoe? Well, clearly it was Kyle Fletcher. And so they changed it up a little bit. And so we get Kyle Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe in Kyle's home country of Australia in a ladder match, which if you know anything about the Briscoe brothers, ladder matches are one of their specialties. And so I think somebody asked this, I saw somebody talking about this on, I can't remember if it was in Slack or social media, saying like, when was the last time that they had 2 singles wrestlers do a ladder match? Because it's typically multiple people is how they're typically done now. And, or at least on TV, I think they were asking. And I think somebody said, obviously, probably one of the most famous, obviously, would be the ones that HBK were in. And so it's not something that they do I mean, I'm sure there are some other singles matches, but it seems like it tends to be tags, multi-man matches, not a straight up singles match. But I was like, well, I know this match is going to be great. And it was. That match was insane. Like, Mark and Kyle have really great chemistry. That's obvious. That's why we've done it 7 times. But now that we have completed the 7th time and Kyle has retained, somebody please tell Tony Khan to keep them away from each other for, I mean, a minimum of 6 months, really like a year. A minimum of 6 months, please. We need to give this title, or we need to give this feud a break. If, like I said last week, if Hangman and Swerve had to take a break from each other after just 4 matches, I mean, granted, there was, a lot of things happening in those 4 matches. So, but please,
I'm hoping since he turned the TNT title back pink, I did see that maybe he'll be keeping it.
Thank God. Yeah, absolutely. So Kyle revealed last night after the show that he has made the title pink finally, because Mark, which is what we were asking for the first time around, and it didn't happen. But then Mark comes out with his camo belt, and then Tommaso had the black. Tommaso went back to the black title. And then Kyle now has the pink. I will say, for as much as I love Kyle Fletcher, which is a lot, I need him to stop calling himself the greatest TNT champion of all time, because that will forever be Mr. Brody Lee. I don't care. You can hold that title 17 times, and it will still be Mr. Brody Lee. That is Mr. Brody Lee's title that you are carrying.
Correct. I mean,
no matter what color it is.
No matter who it's laced around. He's the one who made that title. It will always be the Mr. Brody Lee TNT, AEW TNT Championship belt, whatever, because he was the man and he did create it. So you're only ever going to be the second best, no matter how great you are. And Kyle's great, and he is. And I loved that was something. It's so funny. I always love when there's like some fashion thing that's associated. It's like Okada's pants when you met Trump, like. I always love when there's somebody or something in wrestling that can get you to get excited, get wrestling nerds to get excited about like accessories and clothing. Right. I'd always find, like myself, I'm not into that at all.
With the pink belt, and I think also having it as like Kyle having a pink title, just having a man holding a pink title when you have MJF holding the triple B, and no longer calling, only Hangman has called it the men's world champion. Even though when I talk about it, like on my coverage, I still call it the men's. And then I mentioned this before, Lee Moriarty does refer to his pure championship as the men's pure championship because Deanna is the women's. So shout out to Lee Moriarty. So Kyle is the men's, he's the TNT champion. Obviously it's on par with the TBS championship. And I like seeing it with a pink, he has a pink title.
I like it. I like when people kind of personalize it.
Yeah. And yes, almost all of them have custom belts, but he did not customize it the first time around. Yeah, and so that's why I'm glad that he finally made it happen this time. And then Belts by Dan, who usually creates AEW's titles. He creates titles for other for other promotions as well, but he had pictures of it, of where he created the pink belt, and it looks really cool. And so I'm really glad that that it's definitely a title that fits. And I know that's what the point of personalizing them are, obviously with Mark and the camo and stuff, but to see Kyle, just the pink title just goes with everything else about him. Like, I mean, he came out last night with the crown on his head. He had he was bedazzled on his face a little bit, had some pink paint on his face. He's just very much Kyle Fletcher. And so this title just feels like more of an extension of the Protostar. And so I'm really excited. That match was really great. Both matches, the match with Tommaso and then the match with Mark Briscoe last night was really great. And so now I'm looking forward at some point. I mean, obviously there's some stuff there with him and Proto-Kata and also Proto-Shida. And so do we see at some point, I hope they've done it before with the titles. Are they going to eventually do a title versus title with Okada and Kyle? That's certainly something they could do, because there's obviously something going on there. Takeshita is also jealous of his relationship with Okada because Takeshita is his work husband. So there's all of that going on. So I'm excited to see where this is going to go with him. And then let me see if there was any other comments I wanted to put up here before we move on to the other. Oh, very cool. I'm not surprised. Jordan said in a very recent interview, Fletcher called Mark a wrestling soulmate. They have great chemistry and really accustomed to each other. Great ladder match. And that's funny that you mentioned that, because last night Jon Moxley had they showed a video of him on AEW after it had aired, and he was talking about how it was, even though they called him a winner, feels like he did not get a win over Takeshita because it was a time limit draw. He said that he's like, I feel like I know you very well, even though I don't know anything about you, but when we're in the ring, we're the same. And you are basically called him a wrestling soulmate as well.
Funny, because I noted to Bob that it was like Taka was so good that he got Moxley to do a bunch of high spots in that thing. Mox is not usually he's not going up to the ropes. He's not going off the second or third or doing any flips out of there. But when him and Taka are wrestling, he sure is. He did a few.
He will do whatever Takeshita wants.
They are dance partners, man. They are good.
Yeah, they're great together. And John is like that. John, we've talked about this a lot. That John there's Dean Ambrose, then there's AEW John, then there's New Japan John, and then there's indie wrestling John, and he has these different levels, and I love all of those levels. I love them more than the Dean Ambrose. But Dean Ambrose is dead. Dean Ambrose is dead, and we don't have to worry about that anymore. Rest in peace, Dean Ambrose.
Carry his ashes. That was
Jon Moxley is here.
We did our first earliest. We got rid of his ashes for him.
Exactly.
We shot them into the sun for one of our tests. So.
Yes. Thank you to Dean Ambrose for being our guinea pig.
For being our guinea pig for our original idea, our work in progress, post end of life for wrestling stars and their whatever.
Kyle just looks. He's
great.
He pulls off everything that he does.
He really does.
We got our tiny little Aussie Open. We didn't get to see it, but the house show got the little Aussie Open reunion because it was them and, like I said, Robbie Eagles. Then also in the video that I shared last night of Kyle showing the pink title, Mark Davis comes up and as the video's cutting off, he's about to bear hug Kyle. So that was a really cool thing to see. Maybe one day we will get our Aussie Open reunion. They could. John and Takeshita were unbelievable. Those two could fight to the death of 100%.
You might end up doing that if you let them go for too long.
Right. Oh, they're so good. And then obviously the other title change, I think we kind of knew going into it that it would probably be a title change, but then they made the strap match between Thekla and Stat the main event. So I think that pretty much signaled what was going to happen. But Thekla and Stat had a really good strap match, and they got 14 minutes. That was more than I expected for a strap match, because Nikki was like, I don't think strap matches typically last too long. And as far as not counting, because it's obviously a different stipulation, this was there has been a bull rope match between women. That was Deonna and Thunder Rosa. They were the first women to do it on national television. Allie Katch has been in one before on the indies, but on national television, Deonna and Thunder Rosa were the first to do the bull rope match. So the strap match is obviously similar, but not the same thing. And so as far as they were talking about it, it appears that that match between Stat and Thekla was the first women's strap match on national television. So that's a huge milestone for them, a huge milestone for obviously the women's division. And the match was going pretty well. Thekla, of course, because the dumb babyface did not think to have the Sisters of Sin banned from ringside, especially while Babes of Wrath were supposedly already in Australia. The dumb babyface was a dumb babyface and did not get rid of any type of interference that could potentially happen, and it cost her title. So Thekla is now the Women's World Champion, which I think was probably the right move. We had the conversation a few weeks ago about why Stat is not connecting, and we had a long discussion about that, and I think for the timing, it was the right call. What do you think about the match, and do you think that was the right call?
So I was going to ask you if you had a problem with this happening. Were they originally scheduled to do a 3-hour Dynamite? Was that the way that was? Okay, so did you have a problem with this happening essentially in the overrun? And even though it was the main event, it was like at the end and then into the overrun and not on a pay-per-view.
No. I think it's because it's setting up whatever is happening at Revolution, and I don't know that they could have made Thekla and Stat make it to March. We're literally a month away from Revolution, and I don't know what they could have done in the meantime, because they've been circling each other for a while. They've obviously had the one match already. I don't know how they could have been able to keep this extended for another month. I'm sure that you could have come up with ways, and who do you have Chris Russell in the meantime to keep her away from Thekla? And so I felt like, I'm glad it got the main event. A lot of their main events tend to go in the overrun. And I think we don't have a lot of title changes on TV. So I guess it kind of gives you that kind of surprise element. And I feel like they also, Grand Slam was built to be such a big deal. They had 4 title defenses and a number 1 contendership match on Grand Slam last year, and they only had 6 matches. Last year was only 5, but this one felt much bigger. So I think kind of having that momentum from Wednesday where you have 2 title changes and then you're going into a show with 4 title matches, which none of the 4 ended up changing hands on top of that. So I get the argument for that. I just don't it is kind of, I guess you could make the argument that it shouldn't have happened at 10 o'clock, but it was the main event. And I mean, maybe they had to because had Tommaso Ciampa, again, if he had not been here, then the match with Kyle and Tommaso would not have happened. There would have been no reason to. Kyle and Mark would have set up the match for Kyle and Mark in another way. So I think maybe having that match, maybe kind of having 2 title matches, maybe kind of pushed it. But so I guess in that sense, it's unfortunate that it started after 10 o'clock. But overall, like, I felt like for the story they were telling, the title needed to change hands when it did. And I don't think you could have waited another month for that.
I mean, I ultimately believe that it was going to be Thekla, and that I don't know if I thought it was going to make it to Revolution. I don't know where I thought it was going to end up. I didn't think it was going to be this week. I get why they did it, and that I was just curious if that was anything that was like, although 14 minutes is a pretty solid time for it. And I do like that they did a women's strap match and didn't like hold back on it. So I didn't like have it. There's no slag on the match, no slag on Thekla.
Right.
I don't think Kris was connecting the way that I wish she had, but
yeah.
So, and I think that the next most obvious person, because her and Thekla have been building. So
right.
In the regard of, did it give the people what they want? Absolutely. I think that works.
And I guess it also, in the way that, because Sisters of Sin got involved, if Kris wanted to call in a rematch, she could. They could do a rematch, have Thekla beat her clean, ban everybody from ringside. They could even redo that. They could even do a rematch at Revolution because, granted, the situations were different. Kris beat Toni in a 4-way and then had to face Toni in a singles match to prove that she could beat her in a. And so, do you want to do that 2 champions in a row? I don't know. That's obviously a question that it's not something that you want to do. But so they could have it. Kris could potentially say that she wants a rematch and be like, if you're going to beat me, like you have to beat me clean.
Right.
We're banning everybody from ringside. So maybe they do it again at Revolution. Or maybe they do it in the meantime. I don't know where they would do it because I don't think there's like any like huge major shows where it's not like they've got like any more branded shows, I think, between now and Revolution. So I guess there's that possibility, but I felt like
Kris was on Grand Slam / Collision, so it's not like they're burying her. She was still out and around. They're not like disappearing her because she was around.
Yeah, because somebody tried to tell me that they thought that it buried Kris, and I don't think so at all, because Kris had the match won until the Sisters of Sin got involved. Had they not gotten involved, Kris would have retained. So I don't think that
she was around the next show too, where she showed up and they had her on the Australian show. So
right, and also Thekla. This is not new for Thekla. This is what Thekla does. She has relied on Sisters of Sin before to win matches. So like it's not. I mean, so that is something that's kind of in her MO. And also she knew, like, and she was smart. She knew Babes of Wrath weren't there. And so she knew there was no Kris did not make a stipulation. Hey, make sure they're not here. So she paid for it because.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I mean, I guess you can give them that argument too. But I thought the match. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. Well, Michael has a point. Cut a Death Rider match for just 1 week, and you don't have to book the women after your scheduled airtime. Very fair.
I mean, fair. You know.
Brad makes the good point that the time of the match could have been because it's a strap match. You take it out of prime time so people can't complain about the violence of it. That's a good point because it was
I didn't think about that. That's fair.
I didn't think that is certainly maybe that's where what they were aiming for, because that is a very violent match, especially because people get all up in arms about women bleeding. And so that was a bloody match. And then you saw the interview that aired on Collision, and Kris is still dripping blood. Her chest is covered in blood. She's talking and you can see blood droplets just pouring out of her. And so it was a really violent match. And so I think Brad has a good point there. That's
totally fair.
Maybe that's why they did it there.
And they didn't have to hold back.
They did not hold. Yes.
So they don't have to like be all prissy about it.
Exactly. And Crush says, I think Thekla and Statlander could build to something pretty violent, like a unique enough gimmick match, spider's web match. Still cage wrapped in a barbed wire for the sickos. TK do it. And, Sat said the other day, she was talking about, because when I was reading this, I was like, did Mel write this? Because she's talking about how obviously women bleed and all of the things that she was saying, because I was like, Mel has made all of these points before. But she said, we are sickos. So I absolutely, Crash, could see them building to something like that. And if any 2 women could do it, it's Thekla and Kris Statlander.
But had a bruise or break or bleed in my day on the sports fields, so I'm like, hi, we and we like scars and bruises to make us look badass too. So,
a thumbtack match is what Dr. Larry suggests.
Welcome.
And welcome. Thank you for being here. Yes, but the blood and guts, it is advertised as such. It's literally as Stats, we've said it, but as Stats said in this interview last week, it literally has the name Blood in the match. We knew what we were getting into. If you don't want to watch it, change the channel. And so, yes, it did open the show, but the show is literally themed. It is a blood and guts themed show. We had an opener and a closer. And so I would say for that, then it's a bit different. A strap match doesn't necessarily equal blood. Where a match with the name Blood in it, you better bleed or give me my money back. But in a strap match, you don't necessarily bleed. And so I think that might be part of the difference there.
I get it. I mean, that actually makes a lot of sense when that's not something I was thinking about. But
me either. Yeah, and then Brad also makes the point that it also could be a difference between advertisers, because he was talking about Mox did take a spiked board to the back before 9:30, which sure. So, I mean, there are arguments for that, but regardless, I think
that the people in general still, though, mentally are going to be less advertisers, whatever, are going to be less mad about a boy getting beat up than a girl getting beat up, no matter what the circumstances are. I just think it's institutional, and it's not to say anything. I'm not like, it's not a judgment. It's an institutional thing that we are programmed with, that, and advertisers are using those same algorithms to advertise to us. So they don't want that stuff intersecting with bad feels.
Just look at what happened when Nick Gage had a
pizza cutter around the advertising world. Like, yeah, and they'll never do that.
Still one of the coolest things, but they weren't. It was they apparently
keep that shit on the pay-per-views, unfortunately, just because we already paid our money and they can do and say what they want ish.
Right.
I mean, at least they're not like muting out chants and stuff from Australia.
Right, thankfully. It is Tony's fault. He created the sickos.
What can we do?
And I think I saw way back, I don't know if Corey Michaels is still here, but I saw his comment and then it moved and way back. But Corey, if you're still here, thank you for popping into the chat. I appreciate that. Corey is good people. Corey is good people. Let's see what else. Oh, okay. So we did briefly mention it. So we had on this same show on Wednesday, because so many things happened on Wednesday. We had the number one contender match for the AEW tag team titles. Young Bucks won their way in with a really great match against Gates of Agony. They picked the win up, of course, because they live, I believe, as they have said many times on Being the Elite, they live 6 minutes from the venue that they were at Wednesday night. And then the Rascals were made it into the match, except for it was this time it was Desmond Xavier and Myron Reed who represented the Rascals, and then the mystery team, which many thought, including myself, that it was going to be Cope and Christian, and that's how we were going to get them back on TV and kick off this. Hopefully, this is not hopefully, but kick off this feud with FTR. But then it ended up being Private Party, who have not been on TV, and I believe it was like was it like 493 days or something like that? Maybe it wasn't quite that long. It was a bit. We have not seen them.
In a minute.
They lost a squash match to the Hurt Syndicate to lose their tag titles. Haven't been seen on TV since. A lot of it was because of Tony Khan just felt like they had not improved enough, and he was disappointed with the title run. Pulled them off TV, and
so since last January, says Brad.
Yeah, so January 2025. So was well over.
That's a long time.
Yes. And so I have let's see, I don't know. I do have, so earlier in the day, I did see a Fightful Select come out saying that Private Party are still all elite. So no, they did not re-sign contracts. They are still under contract. They were never not under contract. And that was another reason they were pulled off TV, because WWE at one point did have heavy interest in them, and Tony has been known to pull people off TV when they have interest for WWE. Ricky Starks is probably the most, he's probably the biggest example of that. You could probably also, it appears that's what's happening with Anna Jay as well, because she is basically open to exploring her options. WWE apparently is interested, and we have not seen her on TV since Ty J was when they lost their tournament match. Ty has had a singles match, which also kind of since the signals that they maybe are at least testing out what would happen, what kind of reaction Ty would get as a singles wrestler. And so they, like I said, they are under contract. Their contracts were also ending at different times because of injury, because Mark Quinn was out for quite a while with an injury, and so he had time added on. So I don't know I think it's kind of unclear as to when their contracts are up, but they are still under contract. And so we got to see them. They looked okay during their match. They had some good things, but then there was also, you could tell they were a little rusty. There were, I think Isaiah missed a move. Then there was another move. It was actually Matt Jackson's fault. Matt didn't clear I guess he didn't clear enough space and he fell on top of Isaiah. And so that it was not their fault. But I think that also they were probably trying, because the Young Bucks and the Rascals moved so quickly. I think they were trying to keep up. Their first TV match in a really long time. I guess it was smart to put them in a three-way in the sense that it protected them, but it was also interesting that a team who had not wrestled on TV in over a year got put in a match where if they won, they would be the number one contenders. Right. I didn't love that, but somebody was like, oh, well, it was, they were owed a rematch, but that's not a rematch. You're getting a match to be a number one contender. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure maybe it's semantics or whatever, but I was like, it was just kind of interesting that you pull them off TV for all of this time. And of course, they have the history with the Young Bucks because they've had the upset victory over them in year one. Yeah. And then that momentum never really, like, they did have that momentum for a bit, but it just never, they didn't really improve their, they didn't improve their in-ring, and it showed when they were champions. And then their title run was booked terribly, but it was because Tony had no faith in them. And then they lost in the squash, and then we didn't see them on TV. And then they come back in this situation. But it'll be interesting to see if they continue to use Private Party and how Private Party does with missing so much time, and if they can hang with the current tag teams, because the tag team division has changed a bit since they were last on TV. But they looked great. Mark Quinn is even more huge than he's gotten, like, really huge. They've definitely been spending time in the gym, and it looks like they've been working on themselves. So maybe they took what happened seriously, and were trying to improve, and so that they don't rest on their laurels. And they cut a really good promo after the show, and they were talking about how this isn't a redemption story, but it's basically they're setting out to prove themselves, but it's not a redemption story. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. And then we get the Young Bucks, who did win that match. And now we are getting Young Bucks versus FTR. And I pray that means the Young Bucks are taking the titles off of FTR.
So.
Please.
Very much. I'm the world's biggest Young Bucks fan right now. Even though I've already been, I'm even bigger than usual. I love having them back to being awesome and Young Bucksy.
Yeah. Right. And so I'm excited for that. I'm hoping that's what that means. I still think I don't know if Cope has more film projects lined up, and maybe that's not why they're not back to TV yet. Because that was originally obviously why they were off.
They've got to do it before Canada, right?
And that's what I don't think so. I think because the rumor has been that they are going to do Young Bucks versus Cope and Christian at All in Wembley.
Yes, that's fair.
That was a rumor last year. It was also rumored that, I believe the rumor was that Motor City versus Young Bucks was supposed to happen at All In, but then Motor City decided to go to WWE. And so there went that. So I believe that is the plan. So they have time to build that up, obviously.
Maybe they'll come back in Canada.
Yeah. So because I originally thought that too.
It is Canada.
Yes, Canada's where Dynasty is in April.
So it goes Revolution and then Canada.
Right. And so that's why I originally thought Cope and Christian come here. They do Cope and Christian versus FTR at Revolution. Cope and Christian win, then defend the titles in Canada.
Maybe they need a little more time. Maybe he has some things still. Maybe they want to wait till bringing them back to Canada on a pay-per-view, I guess. She's a huge FTR fan.
I'm a big fan of them losing. I'm a big fan of them losing. I'll tell you that. The match was really good. I do want to go back up to this comment from Michael. I did not forget you, and thank you again thank you. So speaking of advertisers, it's been reported that WBD has a minority stake in AEW. I did see that today. There was a CNN article. Well, it's long been rumored, never confirmed. CNN seemed to confirm it. They put out an article about the Ice Chance prior to Brody Lee and MJF's match in Vegas. And in there, they did say that WBD, who is the owner of, I guess technically they are the owner of CNN, but basically because you have to make that, when there's anything like that, you have to disclose that. And it did say that WBD has a minor stake in AEW, which has been long been rumored, never has been confirmed. This appears to confirm that. However, nobody made comment for this article, AEW, WWE, Brody, or MJF. Nobody left a comment for this story. So it has not been officially confirmed, but also appears to be confirmed via this article. Do you think that has anything to do with the women's limited presence? I don't know if it's, I don't know. Possibly. I don't know what their feelings are about that. I feel like a lot of it has been a Tony Khan thing. I think that Tony Khan he's the booker.
I think he views women differently than he views men wrestling.
The way
I really do.
I think he has come a long way from year one. He is, like we've talked about many times on this show, because he's been very adamant that he does not like intergender wrestling. Mm-hmm. He's not a fan of it. But he has, since last fall, starting in ROH, he was doing more of the mixed matches involving men and women. We have seen where women are getting involved in the matches. We saw it last night. We saw Tony Storm take a pile driver on stage cases from Wheeler Yuta. Wheeler Yuta took a Storm Zero from Tony Storm. So I'm sure WBD probably has some say in it because of, even though this person is no longer at WBD, and from what Tony Khan says has been long gone, but there was a person who kept the Briscoes off TV until Jay passed, but he says that person is long gone. So it's possible that same person was also against women's wrestling.
Right. We know Brian Danielson wasn't a big fan, and he was in Tony's ear a lot. So
yes. I love Brian Danielson.
I do too.
And I will say, but he did not want a woman in Blackpool Combat Club. But you see now that there is Death Riders, Marina is a huge part of them.
Boxley's like a hype man. She's like
right. John was working with Marina at Wrestling Revolver, which is where she's been doing a lot of indie wrestling. John does a lot of work with them, or had been doing a lot of work with him, and that's where he really got to know Marina, and Marina talked to him about some stuff, and that's how it led to what we see now. So I would not be surprised if advertisers or WBD does have something to do with it, especially in maybe the way the women's division has grown. However, if you go back to, I believe it was it year 2 that we got the lights out match with Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, and that was a bloody match. So was their steel cage match. So maybe it's finding there's some balance, but I'm sure that they have some say in it, but I don't know how much of it is Warner Brothers and how much of it is Tony. But then also I think it's gotten to, they have improved. They can still obviously always cautiously optimistic with this women's division. But they have gotten more freedom to do more things. We've got the strap match. We've got the blood and guts match. We got the bull rope match. We've had hardcore matches on there. Obviously, yes, we could do much more. Are they the reason Dynamite has one women's match every week? Maybe so. And a Collision gets 2 women's matches for the most part. And then we have like our quarterly, we joke about it here, that we have our quarterly Dynamite that gets more than 1 women's match. And we all know Tony Khan is never going to put 11 women in the match. Or in matches. They'd all be crammed into one, as we talked about last week. But it is a valid question, is how much, even if they are a minority stake owner, assuming that report is true, how much say do they actually get in any of the programming, other than maybe keeping blood at a minimum before 9 p.m. or something like that.
Doing things that are non-controversial so that they can continue having mergers done.
Right. So that is a very valid question, Michael.
Yeah, it is valid.
I don't know if we'll get an answer to that.
Personal vibe, and I have nothing to substantiate that. This is totally speculation. This is Mel vibe. is that it's more of a Tony thing than it's a WBD thing, because I don't imagine very hard that Tony was fake booking ladies leagues the way he was fake booking tag teams and one-on-ones in his 18 different interwebs leagues that he was like managing back on the early interwebs in the early 2000s. It's just, I don't know that he was even, I don't know. I don't even know like how much like just, I mean, he has a girl lawyer, but like other than that, how many girls does he like talk to? Like, does he even talk to a girl before? Like, we don't know.
I believe he does have a partner, but
okay, good on him. Right on, you go, girl.
But yeah, so, and maybe, I know the thing is, we are a month away from Revolution, so there is no media call, obviously, between now and then. However, hopefully, I'm sure Dave Meltzer has probably reached out to Tony about this. I'm sure maybe even a John Alba has as well. People who have a relationship with Tony where he has done interviews with them. Maybe they will have access to ask him that prior to Revolution, because by the time Revolution gets here, I don't know if that was somebody. I mean, maybe somebody will remember by then, but like, hey, I should ask about this from way back. But I don't know how quickly we're going to get an answer to that, because the media call is not for, well, quite another month. It's usually the Thursday before the pay-per-view. So we'll see. But hopefully we'll get an answer to that. But Michael, that's a very good question, and that's a legitimate question. Mm-hmm. And so, Motor City, I got to see for 2 seconds on Friday in a backstage segment. So happy Valentine's to me, I guess. Brad says if it's under 10%, they don't have to disclose it. So if it's true, it's a very minority stake since it's never been disclosed to shareholders. Right, which is why that's long been a rumor, has never been confirmed one way or another, because like Brad said, if it's under 10%,
you don't even have to disclose it. It's just part of your portfolio. That makes a lot of sense. It's just a little dingy thing that's just floating out in your whole giant portfolio where you're making $1 bajillion with money that none of us are going to see probably anytime in our lifetime. So
yeah. Big Man Dog says Tony has a lot of old school wrestling fan sensibilities, and it's reflected in how he books women too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a conversation we've had on here before. And going back to what Mel was saying when he was doing his e-booking on wrestling back in the day and writing out Dynamite and his math class or whatever class it was he was talking about, like especially in what was even, I mean, yes, he watched ROH and he watched other wrestling, but we also know how women's wrestling for the most part was presented in that time frame as well. And again, like I said, I know he was watching ROH but ROH was not like they had like a women's division in that time frame either, and other things that he was exposed to, women's wrestling was probably not presented as seriously. I mean, obviously China, but once you get past that, especially when you get into the Divas era, like that was booked very differently. So that may also factor into that. But also, I think he has realized that the AEW fans want women's wrestling, and so he may be begrudgingly and dragging his feet in certain aspects, because we still are in year 7 and have never had a woman main event main event a pay-per-view in AEW, yes, and ROH 4 times, but never here. But so like we have that, but he has given women different opportunities. Going back to the Lights Out match with Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, they also had the steel cage match. They've had hardcore matches, they've had these other things, and it's been a very slow way to get, I mean, it's taken a very long time to get here. And so I do think maybe he's coming around more, because of the talent that he has. The women who are in his locker room are asking for these opportunities. So it's not only the fans, it is the women he employs who are also asking for these things. And so I think he has become more open to certain things. Obviously, there's room for a ton of huge improvement. Like we have said, I still stand by this. I don't want a women's C2 if you were just going to say here, damn, and book it the way you book the tag team title tournament. I want you to put as much effort. If you start thinking about the men's C2 in the summertime, then you better start thinking about the women's C2 at the same time. I want you to put in the same amount of effort, or I don't want it. And so so he definitely has a lot of room for improvement. And also, does WBD have anything to do with that? But I do think it's probably more of the Tony part of it. But Curryhead has a question for you specifically. It says, Mel, the AEW does a PLE in Detroit. Will you do a meetup?
I will totally do a meetup because I do not see any current indication of Tony's guarantees or promises coming true. Because I'm pretty sure the year's pay-per-views are set, and none of them are happening here in the Motor City. So, TBD. I mean, if even I would do that for like a Dynamite or something. But yeah, I mean, of course, I would meet with you guys. I'd love to hang out with people down and around there. I would love to have a big pay-per-view here. I think people don't give Detroit enough credit. There's a lot of fun spots to go around here, and I know that it's historically. And guys, we now have a RoboCop statue. If that isn't enough to get you here, I don't know what. We have a giant tire and a RoboCop statue.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. It's very pretty. It's very pretty here. It's a lot of fun. A great airport. But yeah, no. Absolutely. I would love to hang out with you guys. Start just getting up Tony's social hole about actually following through on his Booker promises and guarantees and giving us our freaking pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Also, Lady B said she would join John Muse and I because so.
Oh yeah.
I have a lot of motivation here to get this thing done.
Yeah. Yeah. So just reading through the comments, and just a lot of people seem to feel the same way that we do. That they think it's more of a Tony thing.
Yeah.
Well, and that's whether that's.
I think it's his point of view, and it's not a bad thing. I just think it's the way it is.
Yep. Yeah, I think so too. And USBA guys is that unfortunately, there's just not a level of respect that Tony has for women's wrestling. The pressure he feels every day from the IWC and the talent book to book the provision properly is massive, and it should be. Like, if you are going to claim that you're the alternative and that you're going to listen, then
it's going to be harder.
Put women on TV more. And that's why we joked last week, if AEW were to move Dynamite to 3 hours, would that mean to the first, like literally the first thing I thought was, will Dynamite get 2 women's matches every week then? that turned into quite the conversation on here with Michael being probably very correct. Brad says, all right, with the AEW pay-per-view coming to Queens per Andrews area, which I did see that report last week, if anyone wants to meet up, he's going to try to get tickets for their 3rd pay-per-view, and you can meet Kathy. She's the draw, not me. And I say this with love. I love Brad, but Kathy is definitely a huge draw.
She is a draw. But both of you would be a lot of fun. I mean, it would definitely be seriously awesome to have that combo. Definitely. I mean, that'd be a whole lot of fun no matter what.
So if you're going to Grand Slam,
it's wrestling. I mean,
hit up Brad.
What's not to love?
Awesome. I think there was something. Okay. Well, no, I saw a lot of people talking about this, and that is part of our. That's part of our conversation. We will get to this part of the conversation before we get to Australia, because this was a big part leading up to it. So, as I said before, this is what I'm now dubbing Brody Gate. Because we talked about this last week. You have to, for the fans who are going to check out AEW following what happened in Las Vegas with the fans, who again took that upon themselves. It's had nothing to do with AEW. They didn't do this. Brody King didn't do this. And JF obviously didn't do this. This was completely organic and on the fans. And so there were some reports leading up to Dynamite that maybe WBD was not. They were a little concerned about what would happen the next time Brody King was on TV. But you and I talked about this in Keela, that they have to build on what happened, because people are going to start checking you out. Whether it's 50 people, whether it's 100, whether it's 5 people. People were going to tune in to see Brody King on Wednesday. And they showed a video package of Brody King and MJF to build for their title match at Grand Slam Australia. Neither men were on TV. Kenny Omega, in the opening promo, said that he was the only, or that he might be the most, I think he said the most dangerous man. Was that what it was? Is that the word that he used? Was it most dangerous man? Because Rick, because the Swerve's thing is that he's the most dangerous man in AEW, and it was, so he was just saying, so he put over Brody King massively. So I was like, oh, shout out to Kenny for doing that. But then knowing what transpired, seemed like it was very purposeful. Like he knew Brody was not going to be on that show, so he said what he said, and was giving props to Brody, which I appreciate Kenny doing that. So then there's been a lot of back and forth over the last few days. There was a report that WBD pulled Brody from TV because they did not want the same thing to happen, which, if that were true, and we'll get into the whole thing, if that were true, WBD seriously underestimates wrestling fans, because if you tell wrestling fans not to do something, they're gonna do it. And wrestling fans, as we know, love to chant. They will chant for anything. So they, if that were true, would have created a monster, and it would have been their own fault.
Yep.
Perhaps had this not even have happened, maybe the fuck ice chants would have continued for a while. Maybe they would have died out on their own eventually. It's hard to say. But you potentially pulling him off TV only makes Brody bigger and more powerful, and makes the fans want to see him more so that they can chant even more. That would be a very dumb move on their part. Then, so I believe it was Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez were the ones who originally said Warner Brothers had a problem with this. That's why it wasn't on TV. Then Sean Ross Sapp and Bix and a couple other reporters got statements from Warner Brothers who said actually, let me see if I have the direct quote, because the quote is very interesting, the way it's worded. And then I know that Sean Ross Sapp got mad at people for the semantics, but people were valid because I thought the same thing. So Warner Brothers said their official statement was Warner Brothers Discovery did not have any involvement in Brody King's upcoming AEW schedule. Any speculation to the contrary is categorically false. Brody is scheduled to appear during the next AEW event, which airs this Saturday on TNT and HBO Max. But that statement is very particular. It does not say we had nothing to do with what happened on Wednesday night. This just says, very specifically says, any involvement in his upcoming schedule, which sounds like we messed up, fans are mad, we gotta backtrack now. But then apparently they released a further statement. Tony Khan says that Warner Brothers did not have anything to do with him on TV. Then there was a rumor that Brody was already in Australia, and that's why he wasn't on Dynamite.
To Australia, and that they knew that they had always planned on the video package, and that there were people on the plane with him.
But then BJ Bethel says that was not true, that Brody was at Dynamite, and that he did not get on the plane until after, when most of the talent left. So now there's
a lot of
There's a lot of discrepancy, and then I believe Sean Ross Sapp put out a thing talking about the semantics of that statement, but those are very valid points. WBD knows what they're putting out. They did not, if they did not make the decision there, then that statement is incorrect, because they said future and they said upcoming. So yes, I think you can play semantics with that, because if you did not have anything to do with it, it should have read, we had nothing to do with him not being on TV tonight or any future upcoming shows, is how it should have been worded. Maybe they were trying to hurry up and get a statement out and they misspoke, which is possible, but it feels very much like they're backtracking.
There was a lot of shenanigans here that don't make it look very cut and dried.
Right. So it's very hard to say. I mean,
especially
maybe
when you consider the fact that they're right in the middle of a merger that needs to be approved by a person who probably wouldn't appreciate ice chants going on a publication, on a public forum. And again, I even made the point to someone along the way. I was like, because it did end up happening, and I was like, but it was going to be a tape show, is that if they were to mute out a chant that might have broken out in Australia, that would probably make it worse, because then they would really prove
that's what Nikki and I were talking about last night, because I was like, there were fans in the audience who were recording. So had AEW
dropped
it out, then it would have caused, like you said, because Nikki and I had the same conversation last night, that the videos
that would have been a bigger kerfluffle than doing it.
Would have been, because you can't even, and yes, he was in Australia. And yes, the chants did happen. They were very loud. Thank you. Shout out to the Australian
fans. Shout out Australia, because we hear you and we are trying. And I think that this is something I made a point to my buddies across the pond there, is that because we aren't, as a society, aren't really speaking out, or we are in a circumstance that's hard for people outside of this nation to understand when it comes to just straight up uprisings and stuff like that. Because that's kind of what they want, guys. But the idea is like, so having like support from outside, where it's like, yes, that is becoming almost like it's a rally cry, if for lack of a better thing. It's like, thank you. And also, but yeah, I mean, it took a lot of courage for him to wear the shirt in the first place. Then he's taking shit for it.
In Mexico. Let's not forget, like, he wore it in Mexico. Like, not only did he wear it on national TV in Mexico, when his tag team partner is a Mexican man.
It's hard to, like, because everything is commoditized and being controlled by corporations and by governmental entities and so forth. It's really hard to say that anything's a coincidence anymore.
Right.
So that's a big deal that they're trying to get put through, and they're going to need that dude's signature, whether they like it or not. And that's again, you're walking a fine line, but you don't know, wrestling fans, if you think that you can get away with us not going, why'd you do that? Was that really planned?
Right. And Brody, like, you can't keep Brody yes, of course he was going to wrestle last night in Australia, but in America, you can't keep Brody off TV forever. Like, you're going to have to follow up with that. You and I and Keela talked about it last week, that they need to do something. They have to keep the momentum going with him. They need to give him the national title, or the international title, or the Continental Championship. There's several titles to choose from. But Brody is hot. And clearly we all knew he was not beating MJF, because Tony rarely pivots from his plan. But I don't think you can't kill the momentum he has as a wrestler now with this, and now with WBD. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But even with that, like, people are talking about Brody, so you should put Brody on TV. You should continue to push him. For all of the reasons. Again, he is well deserved. He's an excellent wrestler. He's beloved. He's a beloved wrestler, which is why I think people even gravitate to that even more, is because it is coming from somebody who is beloved. Brody King is somebody that fans, generally a lot of fans like. As a singles wrestler, we've seen him obviously in tags and stuff like that, but he is, like, Brodito was one of the biggest tag teams last year, and nobody expected that. And so I think that Brody, you have to continue pushing him, and so you can't silence him. And maybe we're never really going to know the truth of what happened. Maybe it gets addressed on the media call. maybe Tony does an interview leading up to it, and he says, "Hey, this is what happened." Because what else is being reported is that a lot of people, so obviously, were flying to Australia, and so by the time the Brody Gate began, Tony Khan was already on the airplane and did not know about this until he landed, did not know any of this had happened, supposedly, or at least didn't know that the fans were talking about it. So that is the other story. So yeah, it's AEW Unreal. And yes, hello Collins, thank you for joining us.
Collins, welcome.
Yes, Brody King fan club here too.
Thanks for stopping by. We're on your I think you had a show today, or
Collins has a show, I believe, at noon Eastern time. I want to say they're the Coast to Coast show with JPJ. And so thank you for making, after spending your time podcasting, that you come and stop by. We appreciate that. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see, because it'll be very interesting to see how they move forward with Brody after this, from the WBD standpoint and also the fan standpoint, because Brody had even said last night, there was a promo that aired afterwards, and he was with Bandito, and he was talking about how, like, now that he was this close to winning the title, and then now that he has a taste, like, he's not going away. Like, he still very much wants it. So it appears that they have plans for Brody beyond this. Again, it may not necessarily be the world title scene, but like maybe.
But he needs to be around. He's great at putting people over. Like, he can just do everything. He can have a title, and he should get one. And the national one might be just right the thing, because holy cow, could he just put people over every freaking day, every week, all the time? I mean, he's great. He's really, really great.
Yes, he is. Brody is somebody that you should be glad that people are getting behind. you can find something for him to do with.
Very grateful to him for using his platform to fight injustice and stupid behavior by forces greater than us.
Yeah, for sure. And so, and I thought the match last night, that I thought it was really good. I like that they were selling the knee thing, because we all knew that MJF was going to retain, because Tony books his world champions well.
He has a big pop in those foreign knees. I'm not gonna not that he doesn't get them here, but I've noticed that when they're overseas, he does. It's very popular with the fans overseas, and you kind of got to give the people what they want in those venues, and that's fine. I get it. I don't see MJF like carrying this belt for too terribly long, but I think with those shows in mind, I think it made in the end, because when you hear the pops for him. Yeah, I mean, people want to see him, and that's fine. I get it. It just because it's not 100% my deal doesn't mean that like the overall people are like, put him on.
Michael, you're not wrong. They're talking. The chat is talking about AEW All Access.
Oh God, yeah.
Britt. And again, we talked about it. Could be the way it was edited. However,
absolutely,
for Britt, and it could have been part of it. Could have been scripted, but Britt kind of played herself with some of that. And then,
and they even positioned, because there are conversations, no matter how much of it they cut in or out with Tony Schiavone, especially, where he was like literally telling her what some of us I think were feeling, which is like, you need to worry about yourself. And when you start getting those, whether it was true or not, and whether it was edited or not, when you start getting those moments that we're all sort of in that mindset where it's like, there's way bigger things for you to be bothered by. That is like, I think a lot of people that resonated. And now, did Brett do some of that to herself? Possibly, sure. But also TV is heavily edited, so it is hard to know for sure.
Right.
But I would say this though, and it's something you cannot deny. The women's division has been better, and felt the vibe from the women coming out of the out on the, out of the tunnel seems better for whatever reason that is.
I would say, and we talked about this a little bit before when there were rumors that she was leaving. Clearly she's had a lot of health concerns, and that could be part of what's keeping her off TV. Absolutely. As Tony is trying to be respectful of whatever health issues she could potentially be facing. So I don't know how much of it is that, and how much of it is, the behind the scenes stuff that happened with MJF and Alicia, if that played any factor into it. And so if Britt were to come back, she would be eaten alive by the women's division. She was already, prior to her injury, she was already struggling to keep up with the women. And I think they have lapped her, and she would not fare well at all. Maybe as the character wise, like maybe promos and stuff like that, perhaps she would be okay. But in the ring, I think that it would be not great for her. I think the
production level of the women that are there now has definitely outpaced Britt. You can't have. She's not going to get in there with Thekla and Megan Bain and Mina Shirakawa and Toni Storm and people like that. Even Willow and Harley. Harley looks great.
Yeah.
I mean,
she's
she
definitely
really
Tony has. I mean, Harley's improved a lot, and she really has taken. But he doesn't. This isn't him hinting at a return. He gets asked about this like quarterly. It always comes up. So I won't believe Britt Baker is going to be on my TV until I see her, because it's a conversation that gets brought up frequently. And I do think some of it also is we don't know what's going on with her health, and we don't necessarily, that's not really any of our business. So if he doesn't want to say anything about, hey, she's having health issues, that's why she's not on TV, if they're keeping those quiet, then he's going to say, sure, I'd love to have her back on TV and leave it at that.
Didn't she have TIA? Isn't that what she ended up? She had the stroke. Is that the ischemic attack?
Well, she had something like, wait, was it her that had, was it the stroke? Because I know that Serena Deeb also, she was having Serena Deeb had the idiopathic seizures that they couldn't figure, but Britt nearly died at one point, and her health.
I think that hers was definitely neurological, and if that's true, that could have affected her dental career as well as her wrestling career, and that could be a really hard pill to swallow, because as somebody who's lost their autonomy to disabling conditions, that's a big change in your life. So
I don't know how much of it is.
I hope the best for her, and I hope she's healthy.
Right, definitely, of course, I hope she's healthy, Serena as well, and so that's why I don't know how much of it is. I think Tony is just being careful with what he says, because we don't. Sure, maybe he has plans for her. Maybe she will eventually be back on AEW television, but also it could be protecting her and her health and not wanting to talk about things that she doesn't want to talk about, or maybe she doesn't have answers because they didn't have some of the answers with some of her health problems before. So maybe they are keeping her. Maybe she's still under contract so she can have health insurance to deal with whatever is going on with her. Perhaps that's what's going on. I personally don't know that we will ever see Britt Baker back on AEW television under her current contract. I could be wrong. I mean, private party, obviously, they show up. So it's certainly possible. And then with them showing up, that's obviously going to be, people are going to question that. But I don't, we don't know what's going on with her health. And maybe if that's a factor in why she's not been on TV. It's hard to say. However, I do think that if she were on television in the current landscape, she would stick out like a sore thumb, and it would not be good for her, because and again, we don't know how much her health has factored into what she can do in the ring. And so that may hinder her training. It may hinder if she's even able to wrestle at all. But even if she is able to train, how does that affect how she's able to train? Does it affect what she can do in the ring? So there's a lot of unknown variables. But even if she were perfectly healthy and nothing, and is ready to go, cleared to wrestle, I still think she would have a really hard time with the level of talent that this roster currently has. And we talked about it before. Britt was a huge cornerstone in women's wrestling in AEW, and I will not take that away from her. She, back in the beginning when it was even more rough than it is now, it was really hard. She was a cornerstone of that, and she fought through. She cut awful promos in the beginning, and if it weren't for Big Swole, I don't know that she would have ever learned to cut a proper promo, because those were some rough times.
Yeah, it was hard.
And then they put her in there with Swole, and they had their stuff during the pandemic, and she got better at it. Her wrestling did improve to an extent, and she got to do groundbreaking matches that never had. She's a part of a lot of firsts in AEW. She was one of the first women that they signed. She was the first woman, again, like we talked about, she was the first woman in the Lights Out match with Thunder Rosa. She's done the first steel cage match for women. So she is very important to AEW's history, and nobody can take that away from her. Moving forward, if she were healthy enough to come back, I fear that she would be embarrassed.
That's a high bar right now,
because the women's the amount of talent that is being brought in and has been brought in is way different than it was 2 and 3 years ago when she was, and again, she was already struggling prior to her health issues with, she was sticking out. She wasn't quite keeping up with some of the women she was wrestling, and it was already becoming an issue then. And I think it would only be more of an issue now. So I don't think that we'll ever see her on TV again, but obviously it's wrestling and anything could happen. And I, again, hope the best for her. I hope that she is healthy. I hope that she's doing well. I hope she's getting whatever she needs. And I hope they're figuring out stuff for her. And I do appreciate all of her contributions to what she's done in AEW. But yeah, we will see. Brad says he thinks this is the last we've seen of Britt. The division is long past her, and apparently the locker room is much happier, which is I have also heard that as well. Let's see. So moving on, I think that was all the big stuff from Dynamite. Then last night, as we've obviously gone back and forth, kind of hopping between the shows, because Grand Slam was a very, very good show. I think it has to. Especially now because they have added yet another woman. Actually, they've added 3 new women, but we'll get to the other part in a moment. They have added, finally, we knew it had been reported several months ago that they had signed Lena Cross, who is an Australian wrestler. I've mentioned it a few times. I saw her at DPW's last show in Charlotte in October, and she came out and she was known as the biggest bitch on the indies. Because clearly, if you saw her last night, you see she's very tall. She's taller than Megan Bain. She is a tall woman. From what I've seen, she's a pretty good wrestler. A lot of people really seem to like her and excited for her. So we were wrong. Babes of Wrath did retain. I don't think that was the correct choice. I understand giving Harley the win in her home country. I know that's probably why they did it. However, for the tag team titles, I think it was the wrong decision. And for the TBS championship, it was the wrong decision, because we need those belts away. We only need right now, we need 1 belt, Willow, and we need to build up your tag team titles, and we need to separate those. So, but after the match, Mega Bad was, seemingly joined. So Lena Cross comes out of nowhere and she attacks Harley while Megan attacks Willow. And then Lena and Megan kind of stare at each other, and then Penelope hugs both of them. So it appears that Penelope has brought Lena Cross into this story. It seems like that's where we're going with that. I like the idea of more women's factions. Even you don't have to have trios titles for the women. You can barely book the men's trios titles. So I'm not asking for trios titles, but I like the idea of women's stables. We have Triangle of Madness. I would like to see, you kind of have Marina, obviously Marina Shafir is a Death Rider, but she does kind of cross over and help out with Penelope and Megan. But that having Lena here kind of puts, lets them have their own faction and lets Marina do her stuff with the Death Rider. She can come do whatever when she wants to, but I like the idea of more women's factions. Tony apparently is collecting tall women because down in ROH, he has Story Denali and also Chris, I think it's Christian, Christian. I might be saying her name wrong. Again, I'm behind on ROH. I've got to get caught up, but I do know she's down there. And she's also very tall. So Tony seems to be collecting tall women, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I know that Brad has been very excited. Brad got a birthday present. He has said several times in the chat. They found out it was his birthday. They gave him the Thekla title win, and now they have brought in Lena. Brad has been talking about Lena in our comments for a while now. So that is that's a fair point, that maybe we're going to get Penelope and Lena and get Megan for the TBS title. That could be interesting. They got to do something with that TBS title. And it's not what they've been doing. So I will take that. Big Man Dog said that he's seeing Cross in Sendai Girls and she's pretty solid. Yeah, I've heard that she is. Yeah, her hair looks great. She does have a great look and size. I'm excited for this, and I liked kind of the little look that Megan was like, well, now I was the tall one here. Who is this, and why did Penelope bring you in? So we do have another woman, and then it's interesting. Select made a comment yesterday that AEW is not done announcing signings, and I don't know if it's the signing they announced today or if there's even more. Which kind of brings me back to that last week. I mentioned that somebody said they wondered if Dynamite was moving to 3 hours with all the people they keep signing. And kind of looks like potentially that's where we're going. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe Tony's just hoarding wrestlers. Hopefully not. But then today at the House Rules show, which is a house show that we will probably never see, but AEW did post this to their on Twitter. They said, what is the Inspiration doing here? And so the Inspiration had a match. I have not been able to, it sounded like the Brawling Birds music, but the clip cuts off, and I know the Brawling Birds were supposed to wrestle at the House Rules show, but nobody I kept reading comments from different things that I could find. Nobody said who they wrestled. But in the clip, they did announce they're All Elite. So then, of course, that made people be like, well, if they're getting introduced, or if they're debuting on a house show, that shows you what Tony thinks of them. Or that means that this is not going to go well. No, what it means is Australia is their home country. They were already debuting Lena Cross, who has been signed for months. They just signed the Inspiration. The Inspiration was under contract with TNA until like 3 weeks ago. That's what happened here. This is not because Tony debuted them in their home country.
He debuted them in their home country on a house show so that they didn't look ridiculous on a TV show before they had their first match.
Right.
It made total sense. This is not some weird, first time anybody's done anything. You don't want to put them in there cold. They haven't wrestled in forever or have just finished.
Well, and as we talked about last week,
in a different promotion.
And as we talked about last week when we were talking about the rumors that they were coming, and I did say, hey, they're in Australia next week. That could be where they show up. We talked about this last week, that there have been rumors. Mike Gilbert's probably the person to talk to about this, that they regressed in TNA. So we are concerned about them being in AEW. We are concerned. We do not want them. If you missed this show last week, me, Keela, and Mel all said we do not want them anywhere near the tag team titles until they can prove that they can hang with the women of the division. So we are definitely have some concerns about that. And as I believe way back in the chat, Brad said that he doesn't really have anything positive to say, and it's not his money.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's, yeah.
I get it from a standpoint as in they are familiar. They are a legitimate tag team, which you're trying to build up your women's tag team division. And some people were like, well, why did you bring them in when you have Ty J? Well, if Anna is leaving, then he's gonna need a new team. If Anna decides to stay, well, then you have another tag team for your tag team division. Right. That's what's happening on the other in WWE. That is the problem. They are having to create tag teams because there are not enough tag teams.
If you're only doing house shows periodically, you need to give people a reason to show up, and that's a reason to show up. So
yes, and somebody had said, I don't know if this is correct, somebody said that they may have also debuted them there if they are having visa issues.
That's
giving them the time to debut and get the big pop in Australia, because if you watch the video, they got a really loud pop. Obviously, it's where they're from, so Tony knows what he's doing with that. But if there are visa issues and they're not ready to come back to the States yet, you haven't put them on TV yet. You've given them time to figure out their visa issues,
and they don't get that
if there are any.
And then you don't get that cold reception that some teams and people have gotten when not everyone knows who they are when they come out on an AEW show for the first time, which you don't want to do if you can avoid it. So I don't think that this is not some conspiracy or that Tony thinks any less of them. I think that this is probably a better way to set them up.
He wouldn't have signed them. He would have let them go back.
It's a better way to set them up in general. You're setting them up for success instead of failure.
Right.
Big deal.
And Right, and this is our concern. They're not good in the ring, and we'll have to see if they're bad enough for it to impact the response from the broader AEW audience. And that is I don't know how much Tony has considered this. I don't know if he was like, hey, new tag team people are familiar with is available, let's sign them. Or if he thought of was he watching their in-ring at TNA, or was this, hey, we have 2 new free agents, we need to build up our tag team division, people know them, let's sign them type of situation. And I think Mel made the point last week that you could do, they're obviously a good comedy act, they're better at the comedy than the wrestling. So you could have them, we had talked about if Babes of Wrath, when they lose the titles and Willow is focusing on the TBS championship, you need something for Harley to do. Mel said maybe you pair Harley with the Inspiration, let the Inspiration kind of manage her. And then you have 3 funny Australian women together. You also have Toni Storm, who could be involved with them if that's the route they wanted to go. Yeah, I mean, I'm not super high on this signing. I am very concerned.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'll be there when I get there with them.
Yeah, but I absolutely don't want them anywhere near the tag team titles.
No, I really don't. I
don't even want
soon,
especially given what happened with the tag team titles in WWE.
Correct.
But also just the wrestling part of it. We're still, as we have been screaming since we knew we were getting tag team titles, you have to build up your division. Mm-hmm. They've already made some mistakes in that. They're one of their tag team champions is also another champion. And she does not have time to defend the TBS title and do some stuff with that away from Mercedes Moné and also build up this tag team division at the same time. So there are concerns. So maybe he thought those was going to be a quick fix because as USVA guy says, legitimate tag teams need to be signed regardless of how they look. You can see a difference between actual tag teams and those who were just created. It can make a difference, but it also makes a difference if one of those teams is not even if they are legitimate, if they're not very good in the ring, which is part of the issue with TJ. They are not at the same level as the other tag teams in that division. And that's just, I mean, that I don't say that to be mean or anything like that, but TJ are not at the same level as the Brawling Birds. They are not the same level as even Mega Bad. They are not at the same level as the other women in that tournament. They were put in that tournament because they have been begging for tag titles for 5 years, especially Anna Jay. And so you do have to have legitimate teams in there. I do wish TJ were on TV and, trying to be better. But if Anna is going to leave, then that's going to be one less tag team that they have. And so signing the Inspiration makes sense in that regard. But I guess I want to say hold judgment because I clearly have made judgment on them. I'm very concerned about how they are going to look in this tag team division, but maybe being with this quality of wrestlers will force them to better themselves, or they're going to get hung out to dry. And who knows? I don't know. It's not been said yet. I don't know if they're on a 1-year deal, if it's a 3-year deal or anything like that. We don't know yet. But it'll be interesting to see how they fare in a women's division with all of these really, really strong women. Let's see. Yeah, that feels like because Big Man said if he were to belt up, he thinks that they should belt up the Birds because they can carry matches. I still think Mega Bad should get them first because I think Mega Bad was supposed to be the champions to begin with until Penelope got hurt. But if Brad is correct that they are bringing in Lena Cross to tag with Penelope while Megan goes for the TBS title, then that also makes sense. But at some point, you've got to put the title on the Brawling Birds, and I think All In and Wembley is a great place to do that. Okay. Oh, wait, you know what? I think I did see that Sean Ross Sapp did say it's a multi-year deal, but multi could be too. Maria says that Inspiration will do a good job for the women's division. I hope you're right. I hope they prove me wrong. I hope they do, because we want more talented tag teams in the women's division. So Corey says, to your point, Sam, we've seen people drastically improve when they're perceived as bad wrestlers before, so I wouldn't doubt that they could wow in AEW in time. Yeah, I mean, they are coming in with a lot of expectations, clearly, because we have, for those of us who were following some of the stuff in TNA and the things that we have heard, so they are coming in with that judgment. There were a mixture of responses that I saw. A lot of people were super excited to see them because they're like, oh, I've been following them since WWE. And then there were other people who were like, they're nothing more than a comedy act. They can't wrestle. They're gonna get eaten alive in the tag team division. And maybe so, or maybe it's super drastic, and those are being super drastic, and maybe they'll be fine and can, hold their own and add some legitimacy to the tag team division. So and maybe they, obviously, if they're wanting to impress their employer, maybe they're going to go out there and do a really good job. So maybe we're all wrong. Maybe 6 months from now, Mel and I will be eating crow.
Maybe.
Orange Cassidy is the comedy act, but he can actually go. He could wrestle without the comedy. He could be, if they forced to lock him in, well, they did force him to lock in and be a serious wrestler. He carried that original international title. He made it what it was. He was the workhorse. He was opening every show, defending that title for weeks on end. And so I would say he is a very different comedy act than what the Inspiration are. Let's see here. Big Man says, I think it's a mix of both. Some people have negative cognitive bias when watching TNA. They also haven't been good. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there is some to that. I don't have a problem. I mean, Cedric Alexander is one of my favorite wrestlers ever, and he's in TNA, and I will have no negativity on him. It's the quality of matches. But then again, the Knockouts division, especially the tag team division, is not very strong. So they also have to work with what they're given. But on the other hand, that could make you be like, okay, well, then you look like the most dominant tag team when you are wrestling women who are not at your level. So somebody wants to know why we are not watching JCW Lunacy. As much as I love Caleb Conley, JCW is not for me. That's just not for me. And I assume that's Juggalos, right? I think Lunacy is Juggalos, not Jersey Championship Wrestling. I believe Lunacy is.
Be wrong.
I would believe Lunacy is what the JCW pro. And also, they have Vince Russo.
Only so many hours in a weekend, and
having to cover WWE every week. I already complained about how much it cuts into my time watching New Japan and indie wrestling. On top of that, it's just, what do I not like about it? It's just not for me. From the little bit I've seen, it's just not what I care for. It's just not for me.
Like what you like.
And like I said, Vince Russo is involved, and on top of that, he is now involved with Caleb Conley. Which, again, I love Caleb Conley. I've known him for a very long time, and shout out to him. He has been a long time juggalo. I'm sure he is living his best life in JCW, and I'm very excited for him, happy for him, happy that people have a place where they can be employed and do things that they love. But it's just, from what I've seen, it's not for me. And again, having Vince Russo involved makes me even less interested in your product. Let's see here. So as we talked about this a bit last week, that Hiramu is done with New Japan. He had his final 3 matches last week. He got a very different send-off. A lot of people in that locker room seem to really love Hiramu, which is completely understandable. It seemed like a lot of people are really upset about him leaving. I haven't listened to all of Speaking of Strong Style. I had to stop it right before I got to Steven ranting about Aaron Wolf using in 2 minutes to Ren Narita, because I had to leave yesterday to go run some errands. So I have it queued up and ready to go. And also, they clipped it. When Jeremy said he was clipping it, I was like, oh boy. Steven doesn't rant often, but when Steven rants, you have screwed up. So, but they were talking about some of the stuff with Hiramu. They were talking about how New Japan was definitely driving home the point that this is not the last we've seen of Hiramu in New Japan. So, of course, we talked about the rumors that he could be going to WWE. Steven and Jeremy touched on that too. But if he is going to WWE, then I wonder how long that contract is if they expect him back in New Japan at some point. Maybe they just mean before he retires, or do they mean like he'll be back in a year? I don't know. And then not only did Hiramu leave, but David Finlay left as well. He does He does have a match with Fred Rosser at the New Japan New Beginning show in the U.S. I believe it's on the 27th of this month, I believe. But they do have a match together there. But David Finlay wrestled Callum Newman. At the end of it, he bowed, shook hands with Gato, touched the Lions Mark logo, and he walked out. Definitely very clear that he's gone, which he had been rumored to be leaving. But he is definitely on his way out. I assume the match with Fred Rosser was the last match on his contract. It has been rumored that he's going to WWE, but it's also been rumored that he's going to AEW. I guess we will know more in a few weeks. A lot of people, of course, think he's going to WWE because that's where his dad is, but he also has a lot of things that he could do in AEW, especially if Jay White is healthy. They can do some stuff there. Okada is obviously there. Rocky Romero is there. There's a lot of people in AEW that David could do stuff with. So there, he could definitely do either one. So we will see that. And then apparently, from what Jeremy and Steven were talking about, Henare, I guess, is a free agent of sorts. And so he is not it sounds like he's no longer under contract with New Japan. And then literally as soon as he said that, Drilla, who was in the match with him, announced that he did re-sign a contract and he was going to be in the New Japan Cup. So very interesting that you have Henare be like, I'm a free agent now, and Drilla's like, okay, well, I'm staying. So it's just sounds like there's some interesting things going on over there. Yeah, so they did announce the cup. I believe that Jeremy and Steven talked about the cup, the cup matches or brackets rather. It's very interesting. And they also pointed out, like I looked at it, but it didn't click with me. Gabe Kidd is not in the New Japan Cup, and he apparently cut a very passionate speech on Thursday, talking about how much New Japan meant to him. He'll be back at some point. Sounds like he's coming to AEW to do some stuff with Darby. Appears that he is double contracted, and I completely forgot about this until Jeremy mentioned it. I forgot Kevin Knight is a 2-contract wrestler. He has contracted with New Japan, but has not been back in New Japan.
He's been wrestling so much on AEW, and they've been so hot that they have
not used him. I'm hoping that means they will. I hope he's in BOSJ again, and I hope this time Speedball has obviously they have been in BOSJ, but they have not been in BOSJ at the same time. Given what we got to see at the Continental Classic, I would love to see both of them in BOSJ. And Kevin was doing some really cool stuff in New Japan, and New Japan is hurting, and it would be nice to see him do some stuff in Japan too. Even though I'm selfish, I mean, I love New Japan too. So the more Kevin Knight, the better.
Exactly.
Amazing. So let's see. I'm gonna go to a couple of comments over here. USVA guy says all he has to say is Bullet Club is not dead.
I believe you.
I believe
you know more than us.
I will definitely take your word.
Bullet Club will never die.
Maria thinks that he is WWE bound. Brad says Evil, Haramu, Finley all leave for WWE. Will people complain about them stealing all the talent like they do when people sign with AEW? Probably not. Some of them will, but probably not the bad faith ones.
I don't think you'll get the same kind of trollery.
No. Maria says David's going to end up like Dempsey on NXT. They are doing, supposedly, they are rumored to be doing a stable of their Nepo babies, which is interesting because all of their Nepo babies have different last names. Like none of them wrestle with their family member's name, but they supposedly last week, or there was a rumor that they were going to do it, and then allegedly WWE trademarked the name Birthright. So apparently that may be a faction name that will be full of all of the NXT talent who are second and third generation. And in David Finlay's case, he would be a fourth generation wrestler.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, it's certainly possible. There are definitely reasons for him. There are valid reasons for him to go to WWE, and there are very valid reasons for him to go to AEW. So I don't know. I can't tell where he's going. I would like to see him in AEW, but I would absolutely not be surprised if he signs with WWE. I could see either one. Let's see. Big Man says, I think Drilla staying a bit longer is a smart decision for him. He might get a surprisingly big push. Definitely.
I mean, they need people, so he certainly has the opening if he wants to make a splash.
For sure, especially with the New Japan Cup coming up, that definitely would be a big thing. Michael said, I don't think NJPW would have given Hiromu the tribute and the win in his last match if he was going to the Fed. They didn't do that for Cobbs or Finlay or any of the people they were going there. And then Steven and Jeremy also made a really good point that they don't know if because my prediction was he was going to Noah because he wants to be with Naito and Bushi, but that man loves Naito. But Naito, they knew Naito was going to Noah, and New Japan, they're like, you can tell the difference in the send-off that Naito got versus the send-off that Hiromu got. And obviously things have really fallen apart between Naito and the New Japan front office, so that certainly factored into it, but going to pretty much their direct competitor also kind of sounds like that. So maybe Hiromu is not headed to Noah, or if he is, maybe he's just doing a few shows. But it sounds, so it's really interesting. So maybe not, maybe Hiromu isn't going to WWE, but maybe he's not going to Noah either. Let's see here. The Legacy 2.0. Yes. And somebody was laughing at your eye. Crash was laughing at your eye roll. Let's see. Best case for David Finlay is NXT, and that he takes Ethan Page's role on that show at AEW, who obviously has a spot with Gabe and Clark. Yes, and whenever we get a healthy Jay White and a healthy Juice Robinson, for that matter.
Yes, please.
See, that's my thought too. The Hiromu is going to Noah.
Probably closer to the truth.
Oh, thank you for clarifying. See, Nikki and I were trying to remember this yesterday. Okay, so Kevin and Speedball were both in Super Junior 2023. They were just in separate blocks. We were thinking it was separate years because I was thinking Speedball was 2024 and Kevin was last year. Wait, was it the year? So thank you for clarifying that for me, because Nikki and I could not. We were trying to remember that yesterday. We were like, were they in BOSJ at the same time? Well, regardless, they should both be in BOSJ again together because they're both phenomenal, and I love BOSJ, and I want to see my favorites in it. And then, so had Brody Gate not happen, the biggest controversy of the week probably would have been Royce Keys Gate. Because Royce Keys, who is the former Powerhouse Hobbs, apparently, and how this all started is in the Wrestling Observer, Dave noted that Royce Keys is 41 years old, which would make sense for him taking a WWE contract at, at that age. It's probably the last opportunity he's going to get. Makes even more sense for him. Well, apparently that caused an uproar because it was believed that Royce Keys was actually closer to 35 or 36. And so then this turned into a whole big thing about, did Hobbs lie about his age? The WWE know that he was really as old as he is. Was he lying about his age to go to WWE? Of course, people got really weird with it. Hobbs has not been on, Keys, I've got to get in the habit of this. Keys has not been on television since Royal Rumble. But he's nowhere to be found. But I think, my guess was because Obafemi is technically a free agent in that he can decide between Raw and SmackDown. They just did the same thing with Javon Evans. I assume they were keeping Keys off television until Femi picked a brand because WWE is not going to put two big black and jacked men on the same show. It will confuse Paul Levesque.
Because he doesn't see color.
Right. It will be very confusing to him. So I just assumed that's why they were keeping Keys off television because, they made the big deals. He's going to the main roster, and then he was in the Royal Rumble, and he hasn't been seen since. And then so the age thing and him not being on TV led some people to speculate that WWE fired him because he lied about his age.
Wow.
Which I assume, no, I don't think that's probably what happened because he would have had to give that same paperwork to AEW. He would have had to.
We all have to fill out I-9s in this country.
Yeah,
so
when you
have to produce the freaking
job, you have to give them your social security
number, birth certificate.
Right.
You
have to give them your driver's license
in America to fill out an I-9.
Right. Exactly.
Passports and birth certificate, all things with your birth date explicitly listed on them as part of the deal.
Right. So
unless WWE is bad at math, at which point it wouldn't be a breach of contract because he wasn't lying about his age. The person who signed the contract didn't do their due diligence. So they couldn't fire him without buying his contract out.
Yeah. So
legally speaking.
Right. And so apparently because Ancestry.com and other similar websites. No, listen. So obviously you can have subscriptions to this. So people who already have, I don't think people were going out of their way to get sign up for 30-day free trials.
I know you can use that in my library.
I think this is people who did it. But now with this, you can look up people's yearbooks. Well, that's how so there was a picture of Will Hobson, that is his real name, of his yearbook. So they found his yearbook. There was no Will Hobson born in California the year not that he claims, because I want to make this clear. He has never claimed this. This is somewhere along the way, his age got misreported. Then it didn't help that the AEW trading card had the wrong year on his birth date. I think they had it as 1989, which is still not correct. And then they probably got reprinted with the wrong, when they did the next year, it probably just got printed with the same date. So it was probably just a typo, or they just put in the wrong date, and then it never got fixed. So then people were like, well, look at this card. I was like, so Powerhouse Hobbs is not out here intentionally telling people he's younger than he is. AEW would have to know his age because of the paperwork he filled out to be an employee.
He printed his age as 65, and it's really 63.
Right, and it's not like AEW is out here saying 35-year-old Will Hobbs, it doesn't, or Powerhouse Hobbs. I don't recall them really ever mentioning his age. So it's not like they were going on TV every week. It's not like Hobbs was going on TV every week saying this. It was clearly some type of a typo, or something was put out incorrectly somewhere. But anyway, so his people were posting his yearbook on Blue Sky and I think on Twitter to prove that Royce Keys is actually 41 years old. If the birth date where it's January, I believe his birthday was January 11th, he would have just turned 37 years old, according to that information, which is incorrect. So Hobbs has not been fired because Friday night he wrestled on Main Event against Nathan Frazier.
There you go.
And Hobbs even posted on his Insta story, so he has a screenshot, a picture of his Insta story where he was at SmackDown. Nikki made the point that they are probably trying to WWE-ify him and get the AEW out of him because they have WWE's wrestlers wrestle a certain way. They are probably putting people like, oh my God, he's already on Main Event. Well, for two reasons, most likely for two reasons. A, to have him do the WWE way of wrestling on television, and also I really think it's because of Obafemi. Once Obafemi decides on a brand, I could be wrong, I feel like he's going to SmackDown. So if he goes to SmackDown, then that means that Royce Keys will probably be on Raw. Again, They are not going to put two very large black men on the same show. That's just not what WWE does.
WWE thing.
So I think that's all. I think it's just all it's just a big misunderstanding, and it's just. Yeah, I was like, I don't think I don't think that that Keys was doing anything malicious or anything like that. It's something that got out of control because it sounds like Meltzer was doing his job and properly reporting his age, and then somebody wait a minute. I thought he was this age, and then just a simple question of, hey, this is what I thought. Not that like this is some big scam by Royce Keys. Yeah, it's like I was like, I don't think this is some. He's not running a scam to get hired by WWE. Like that's not what's happening here. Please leave that man alone.
To make sure his group life insurance gets him at an earlier attained age than the one that he's actually living with, so he can pay less for his premiums. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, right.
That's got to be it, right? It's a conspiracy so he can lower his monthly premiums on his group life insurance plan. That's the reason.
There we go. We solved it.
Solved it. See,
solved it.
Licensed insurance agent here, folks. I figured it out for you. You can move on with your lives.
Yeah, it was turning into this whole thing. They were very bored. And again, like, I don't think people were signing up for Ancestry.com just to prove this. This is probably people who already have access to these type of websites, and they can just
go over to my local library and use it for free.
Right. So. All of this, which is what they keep. All of this is public record. Like, you can just, like you said, you can utilize your local library to find out this information. And so, and in the internet age, it clearly takes no time to figure this stuff out, because, like, I didn't even know what was happening. I just saw some people there like, oh, Hobbs is really 41, and I was like, who gives a shit? And then it turned into, then there were, of course, the bad faith people who were like, oh, he was lying to get a job with WWE, which doesn't make any sense if you use your brain for 2 seconds, because
41 is only like a quarter of the times that Trump was named in the Epstein files.
Right.
So maybe they should be focused on better things.
Should be.
I mean, I'm just spitballing here.
Big Man makes some points that, yeah, Braun getting injured could complicate where they put Oba to. Yeah, Braun had to have surgery for a hernia from where he did a spot with a table, and he had to, because he was like he was flipping a table over and aggravated. I don't know if he aggravated or it caused the sports hernia. I think he aggravated, but regardless, he had to have surgery. He's probably going to miss WrestleMania. Even though WWE won't just say it happened in this spot. They are trying to, like, I forget the way they're wording it. And I'm like, you can clearly see, like, we all saw the spot where he flips the table over. Like, just, it's whatever. I don't know. They're so weird about things, so it's not a surprise.
They're so weird about that.
Yeah, so now Braun is going to miss WrestleMania. He had been being pushed pretty well. All of a sudden, even though there was the Royal Rumble where he lost in 40 seconds, which was not great, and then he got injured, and now he's out. And supposedly, I don't know how, the rumor was he was supposed to wrestle Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. I don't know how accurate that's been the rumor that's been going around. I don't know. I don't care really about what the plans are for Brock Lesnar. I want him off my TV is all I care about. I want Gunther to hurry up and retire him and get him off my TV for good. But WWE doesn't care about that. So, and they won. Shout out to the Wrestling Observer voters who voted most disgusting promotional tactic as WWE bringing Brock Lesnar back while he's still named in an ongoing lawsuit.
They win every year.
Yeah. There is. They do win every year.
Market on slimy moves, man.
Yeah, and they were there was 10 responses, and I think 8 of them were WWE. Because I saw
my experience when I was voting on the fan voted ones was that it was almost always a WWE thing, and then it was just which thing was the worst thing that they did.
Yeah, because Josiah, who was a friend of the show, is a voter, and he was showing he had the results in the other day, and so we were talking about them, and that's how I saw that If you look at that category, everything was TKO except for like 2. Yeah. Which I'm sure they don't give a shit about. They don't care. Because they're doing it, so they don't care.
Dignity and all that jazz.
Yeah. Yeah, 8 WWE, 1 UFC, and 1. Was there an AEW one? I thought it was GCW. GCW, I think, had one because GCW had one because it was the Sabu thing about his, I believe, or maybe it was an honorable mention. Maybe that's where I got. Maybe it was an honorable mention, not one of the. Maybe it wasn't one of the.
Still a pretty stunning ratio there.
If you're getting 8 out of 10, that's not good. Cool. Jordan says he likes your hat. It's very furry.
Thank you. It is very furry. I got this on the it's clearance hat times of year, so
we love that.
Keep my eyes out.
Oh yes, that's right. Yep. The stuff with Rampage Jackson.
Oh right, that
which is pretty disgusting, and probably would have in any other year that WWE wasn't doing things. That would have
any year that WWE
didn't
exist.
Yeah, if they didn't exist, that would have been number 1, as it should be.
Yeah. Gross.
That's pretty disgusting. Okay, so I believe we've covered all the topics on our topics list, and we covered a lot that wasn't even on our topics list.
Yeah, comprehensive.
Yes, which we appreciate. We love having an active chat.
We love you guys.
Otherwise, Mel and I would just be talking to ourselves, which is not an awful thing because Mel and I we do enjoy talking to each other, but it is helpful when we have people to chat with. So
we like having you guys here. You're very engaging folks.
Yes. So this will be an interesting week. It's really AEW, as I think somebody else mentioned it in the chat. AEW is really, kind of firing on all cylinders right now. They are having really good wrestling. They're having some good booking. There's some, some things that they need to fix, but overall, they're really hot right now, and they're bringing in all kinds of talent and all kinds of stuff. And we're heading into, we haven't even had the first pay-per-view yet. Yeah. First pay-per-view is not even is a month from today, which Revolution is very important to Powerbombshells because that was our first really big show that we covered way back when we got started. So Revolution has a special place in our heart, and we're looking forward to that. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens next week with title changes, with new arrivals, with Brody King. The TV specials have been really good. So even it doesn't feel like there's been a lack of pay-per-views because there has been so much good television.
I think.
And like I said,
more excited for Revolution than I have been necessarily. Although when I see cards, I get excited. Right. But now I'm like, okay, now it's kind of time for an AEW pay-per-view is where I'm at.
So we know for sure, obviously now with, I did want to say this. So we did find out that Andrade, because we've been talking about Andrade getting a really big push. Well, it turns out he took Samoa Joe's spot. Samoa Joe is apparently in concussion protocol. And so the matches that he was supposed to have been in, Andrade has been plugged into those. So Hangman defeating Andrade, because I thought Andrade was going to win, because I just thought they were pushing him. And I thought they were going to do MJF Andrade at Revolution, but now knowing that was supposed to have been Samoa Joe, Hangman beating him, because Hangman would have beaten Samoa Joe in that spot, that makes a ton of sense. So doing Hangman and MJF, and my friend pointed out Hangman and MJF have a lot of history at Revolution. I still think they're going to do Omega MJF at Dynasty in April because it is in Canada. That's still my theory. I think they're trying to get the it would have, maybe, I don't want to say it wouldn't be more satisfying. Had it been Samoa Joe and Hangman, it would have continued their story after what happened at World's End. But I do like the Andrade stuff. It's nice to see somebody fresh in the, kind of in the title picture. The title picture is it's red hot. There's a ton of people in there. So we do know for sure that we're getting MJF and Hangman. the stuff they did with Hangman last night was really great. They brought him back in. He came with the clipboard, signed the contract, helped drop the contract at Max's feet, pretended like he was going to stab him with a pin, made MJF flinch and fall, and he just tossed the pin at him and left. So they've got that, and I assume FTR versus Young Bucks is probably happening at Revolution. So obviously now we have a month to build up the rest of that card, which will be really interesting to see where they go. Let's see. Jordan says Kilo was was great on your 200th show last week. We see you guys on the Wrap one day? I have been on the Wrap before.
I thought Sam has done it before. I don't tend to watch WWE, so I don't want to waste people's time. I mean, I have done some things with Kilo where I did watch WWE to help her out, because obviously Kilo is an official broad and I would be here anytime. I think Sam's been on it, but yeah.
Yes.
So.
But yes, if Keela wants me back, I'm more than happy to step in.
We all love each other here. In a very platonic but very much awesome way. We are very, very good brothers here at Fight Game Media and sisters. We just like each other a lot.
Right, we do. I mean, like I said, we have Keela Cash who's filling in on the Dynamite show this week. So
She is not only helping us out last week, but she is going to take care of Jeff Hawkins.
Yeah, so definitely go support them this week. I do. Yeah, Andrade's rise in popularity does feel tangible, not just an IWC narrative. It's cool. Yeah, so that's why I thought like it makes sense knowing now that he took Samoa Joe's spot, but he has done such a good job that like it felt natural, and we do know he did beat Gabe Kidd on Thursday. So he will be facing Yota Tsuji for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship at the New Beginning show in New Jersey. So that's why I was like, well, it makes sense that, he could be getting an AEW title shot. He could be getting a New Japan title shot, because obviously he is doing stuff with New Japan and that's continuing. So that's really cool to see that. They said that Andrade versus Gabe Kidd was really good, but Andrade looked, I believe if I remember right, they said Andrade looked better than Gabe. And they said that Gabe seems to be kind of struggling because he's been splitting his time so much and flying back and forth that it seems to be affecting his quality in the ring a bit. So that is definitely an interesting thing as well. But yeah, it's nice to kind of see something different with it. I'm glad. We'll see how much this stays with Andrade. Perhaps they put the national title on, or the global title on, or the national title, and then there's a global title in New Japan. Is it global? I thought it was.
Okay.
Thank you for correcting me. Oh, that is okay. Yes, thank you for correcting me. It's the global title, not the IWGP. Yes, thank you. Thank you for correcting me. And yes, I could see that too. That Andrade's got to cheat to get the global belt off Tsuji. And it was funny because obviously he was going to cheat. Hangman caught him and he cheated instead. And then Andrade cut a promo and was like, "You cheated. Like, how dare you do that to beat me? I have my eyes on you now." And so I thought that was really funny that Andrade was like, "Now wait a minute. You don't get to beat me by cheating." So yes. Yeah, that was great for Hangman. He wouldn't let the Australian wrestler, because that was the plant they had in the ring was an Australian wrestler last night in the Andrade thing, because she kissed Andrade on the cheek, wanted to kiss Hangman, and Hangman was like, "Nope, I'm married." And Hangman needs to be careful taking selfies anyway with anybody, sir. Be careful of who you're taking photos. Be careful who you're taking photos with.
Good point.
Maybe also who you were friends with, but Big Man says they could do that, and then maybe Tsuji can pin Andrade clean in the G1. We have somebody who is in the chat asking how we are. We are doing great, and you have caught us as we are wrapping things up. So thank you for stopping by. Hopefully, if you would like, you can catch the replay to see everything else we talked about, and you will join us next Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time when we come to chat more next about the wrestling we watch. or in Mel's case, the wrestling she sometimes doesn't watch but has to listen to WWE talk anyway.
I still love you. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
Bye.